Welcome back, friends, to the Paranormal M channel. Been having trouble sleeping lately? Don't worry, we've got you. We hope these spooky stories help you relax and drift off a little easier. Thanks so much for sending in all your paranormal experiences, and please, keep them coming. Oh, and drop a comment below and tell us what you do for a living. I'm honestly really curious what our everyday listeners are up to. Now, switch on your bedside lamp, put on your headphones, and let's dive into today's paranormal experiences. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks. Okay, so I've lived in this house long enough that I almost forget how weird it sounds when I say it out loud. But I'm telling you, this place has history. And not the cute, old wallpaper and creaky stairs kind either. Our house was built in 1948, and the first couple who owned it stayed there for decades, until somewhere around the late 80s, early 90s, when my granddad, Ray, bought it. The story we got handed along with the deed was not comforting. Apparently, the original owner, his name was Mr. Hollis, I think, died in the bathroom. Heart attack, just like that, while he was getting a bath going. His wife only realized something was wrong when she saw water slipping out from under the door. And when she opened it, she found him. I've heard different versions, like whether he fell beside the tub or collapsed right near it. But either way, that bathroom has never felt like just a bathroom since. And ever since then, it's been like the house kept a piece of him. Now, most of what happens is small, subtle, the kind of stuff you can shrug off if you want to sleep at night. Like you'll be home alone, actually alone, and still get that heavy feeling, like someone's standing just out of view, listening. We've seen quick shadows cut across doorways, little wisps that look like smoke in the corner of your eye. And every so often, this one always makes my skin tighten. We'll catch a whiff of cigar or pipe tobacco, just floating through the air for no reason. None of us smoke, but Mr. Hollis apparently did. And then there's the whispering. Not like a full voice, not like a movie, more like your name being breathed so softly you almost convince yourself you imagined it. Almost. At night, I'd hear movement in the kitchen. The tiniest clinks, like silverware shifting, or an empty can rolling a little on the counter. And the locks, oh my God, the locks. Doors will just lock themselves. And one time, I swear on everything, every exterior lock on the house just stopped cooperating. Keys that worked yesterday suddenly wouldn't turn. It felt like the house was saying, no, not right now. But the part that really messed with us was when things started moving right in front of us. We're a hunting family, so sometimes you'll find random little things around, like an empty shotgun shell sitting on a shelf in the living room, just because someone emptied their pockets and set it down. More than once, those shells didn't just fall. They jumped. Like they launched from the back of the shelf, hopped over other taller stuff, and hit the floor like they were swatted. And my mom, Dana, has this vintage comedy doll in a little glass display case. Not a toy anyone plays with. It's more like a don't touch it display piece. We came back from a day trip once, some candy place. I think it was one of those factory tours, and that doll had rotated inside the case. Like a clean 90-degree turn, facing a totally different direction. Nobody had been home. And even if they had, who goes out of their way to twist a doll inside a glass cabinet? So yeah, weird. But still, manageable. Until the scary stuff happened. That story alone messed me up for a long time. But the worst thing, the one that still gives me a cold rush when I remember it, happened to me when I was about 12. So let me explain the layout, because you have to picture it for this to hit the way it hit me. My bedroom door opened right into this short hallway. My sister Kira's room was across from mine. Halfway down the hall on the left was that bathroom, the one where Mr. Hollis died. And just before you hit the bathroom, on the right, there's an opening into the living room. If you step into the living room and go straight across, you're basically lined up with the dining area, and then you cut left into the kitchen. And the floors. The floors are original hardwood, old enough that they talk back. We've got a crawl space too, so footsteps don't just sound like footsteps, they feel like them. Every creak travels. So it's late, like midnight, maybe later. I should have been asleep, but my door was open, just cracked enough that I could see a sliver of the living room opening down the hall. The house was dark, but not totally black. Just that dim, nighttime gloom where your brain keeps trying to invent shapes. And suddenly I got that feeling. You know the one. The someone is moving toward you feeling. Like your nerves notice before your eyes do. And then I heard it. Footsteps starting from the kitchen, moving across the living room, coming straight toward the hallway. And it happened fast, like within 2 or 3 seconds, and my whole body just went rigid. The sound changed as it got closer too. It stopped sounding like normal steps and started sounding like someone in slippers. This slow, dry shuffle, the way an older person might drag their feet without picking them up all the way. Shuffle. 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 It entered the hallway, and then it stopped. Right at my door frame. Not in the hall somewhere, not near the bathroom, not drifting off in the living room. Right there. And I couldn't see anything. I couldn't hear breathing. I couldn't hear a voice. Just the presence. Like something standing there, angled toward my room, aware that I was awake. I felt like my heart was trying to crawl out through my ribs. And then, after a second, maybe 2, it started moving again. Shuffle. 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 Backing away the way it came. Out of the hall, back across the living room, and toward the kitchen. And the second it was gone, I swear to you, I didn't breathe until it left. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just laid there thinking, if I move, it'll come back. And I'm not proud of this, but I'll be honest, I almost peed myself. That's the kind of fear it was. The kind that doesn't feel like scared. It feels like your body has decided you're prey. Okay, so I need to start with a little context, because the house is basically a character in this story. When I was about 10, my family moved into this older place. Mid-century kind of old, like 50s-ish, maybe early 60s. It had this weird little cluster near the front. The entryway, the door into the garage, a small living room, a tiny kitchenette, and the laundry area, all kind of packed together. The important part is, sound traveled really easily. If someone opened the front door, you could hear it from the garage. If someone spoke in the entryway, you'd hear it in the laundry room. Nothing was insulated from anything. Fast forward a few years. I was 14, taking the bus home after school. Most weekdays, I'd have the house to myself for a bit, about an hour, hour and a half, before my mom got off work and my sister Maya got home from campus. I had a routine. Let the dogs out, do whatever little chores I'd been assigned, snack, start homework. Same thing every day. And then there was the garage. I hated the garage. Not for any logical reason, really. It just had this heavy, unpleasant feeling. Like you were walking into a room that didn't want you there. So whenever I had to go in, I'd do it fast. In and out. no lingering. That afternoon, one of my chores was taking recycling out. So, of course, garage time. I'm in there, dumping bottles and paper into the bin, trying not to look around too much, when I hear it, clear as day. The door opens. It shuts. And then this loud, bright voice goes, "Hi, Riley." And it's Maya's voice. Like, unmistakably her. Same tone, same cadence, like she just walked in and was announcing herself. I didn't even think. I just answered automatically, still facing the recycling bin. I went, "Oh, hey Maya." No reply. I finish up and I walk into the entryway like normal, expecting to see her dropping her bag or kicking off her shoes. And there's nobody. So I say again, louder this time, "How was class?" Nothing. And now I'm confused, and my stomach is starting to do that slow sinking thing, so I call out one more time, "Maya? Hello?" Silence. I check the front door. It's still locked. I check the back door. Locked. I even stand there staring at the lock like it's going to tell me the truth if I glare hard enough. Then I look at the time, and my brain goes, wait, she can't be home yet. Because Maya was painfully punctual. Like the kind of punctual where you could set your watch by her schedule. And she wasn't due back for at least another half hour, maybe 40 minutes. So now I'm standing in the middle of the house with the dogs looking at me like, "Why are you vibrating?" And I realize, very calmly and very desperately, that whatever just greeted me was not my sister. I didn't scream. I didn't do anything dramatic. I just said out loud, like I was speaking to a person who could hear me, "Okay, I'm going outside now." And I grabbed the dogs and went straight into the backyard. And I stayed there. Like, I stayed out there the whole time, just pacing and petting them and trying to act normal, while also listening for any sound coming from the house. I waited until my mom's car pulled in. Then I waited until Maya actually walked through the door for real. Only then did my body finally unclench. Just like that. Casual. Like he was saying the microwave ran hot. He told me he felt watched constantly, like almost all the time, and that certain areas of the house made his skin crawl for no reason. And hearing him say that was such a weird relief, because I realized I wasn't the only one who'd felt that strange heaviness, but nobody really talked about it while we lived there. I always remember how much I hated being upstairs alone. At night it was worse, but even during the day it felt wrong. Like you were waiting for something you couldn't see to step out. I finally told my mom the whole Maya's voice story not that long ago, honestly way later than you'd think, and she just stared at me, completely stunned. Then she told my stepdad, and he had the same reaction. Even Maya got quiet when I explained it to her, because it's such a specific thing to hear your own voice used like that. And the creepiest part is, we loved that house. Like we genuinely did. Great memories there. It wasn't some horror movie dump. It just had moments. Okay, second story. Different place, different vibe, but still the same feeling of, wait, did that just happen? A few years ago, I went on a trip to the city I live in now. It's one of those places with old buildings, history everywhere, and the kind of reputation where if you stay long enough, someone eventually tells you a ghost story like it's local weather. My mom and Maya surprised me with a ghost walk, night tour, storytelling, the whole thing. I was so excited. I've always been into paranormal stuff, and honestly, I loved the atmosphere of those tours. It was late, shops closed, streets quiet, that slightly echoey nighttime sound. At one point, our group stops in this little loading area behind a store. The guide is mid-story, and she transitions from one haunting to another, like she's setting up the next part. And right as she starts, there's this sudden, sharp impact on the door beside us. Not a creak, Not a tap, a slam. It sounded like an open hand smacking the inside of the door, flat palm, full force. Everybody jumped, like full body flinch. Then people did that nervous laugh thing, you know? The, okay, that was weird, laugh. And the guide, she looked genuinely thrown, like she wasn't doing a bit. She went quiet for a second, like she'd lost her place, and I remember thinking, oh, she didn't expect that. My mom claims she didn't hear anything, which still makes me laugh a little because the group reaction was so immediate and so collective that it's hard to believe it was nothing. Could it have been someone messing with us? Totally possible. It was near a building entrance, and people do mess around. But the timing, the sound, the guide's face, there was this tiny moment where it felt like the city itself answered the story. So yeah, those are my two big ones. I'm older now, and I'm still fascinated by all of it. I'm not someone who wants to believe every little thing is a ghost. Like, I try to be rational. I try to debunk stuff. But those two moments have stuck to me in a way that normal, weird noises just don't. And honestly, even if there's a simple explanation, the feeling of being 14 in that garage, hearing Maya say my name like she was right there, I don't think I'll ever forget that. Okay, so I'm telling you this mostly because I need to hear myself say it out loud, you know? Like, I know what I saw. I've known it for years, but I still find myself wanting someone else to weigh in and tell me I'm not crazy, or maybe to fill in a gap I can't fill on my own. So this happened when I was about 10, late spring, back in 2001. My dad Ronnie and I took a day trip to go trout fishing near this little stretch of mountain country outside Cass, West Virginia. It was one of those simple days that felt big when you're a kid. Just the two of us, the rods, the cooler, the quiet. We fished most of the day, moving along the water, and by the time the sun started dropping, we were tired in that good way. We headed out around dusk, maybe 7-ish, give or take. And this was before everyone had a phone with a map in their pocket, right? No GPS telling you, recalculating. It was just my dad following his memory and whatever road signs happened to still be standing. Well, he took a wrong turn. At first, neither of us really noticed. It just turned into one of those roads that gets narrower and rougher the farther you go, like it's quietly daring you to keep driving. Gravel, potholes, tree branches leaning in. The kind of road where you start thinking, we probably shouldn't be here. After maybe 40 minutes, or close to an hour, my dad finally admitted what we both already knew. We were lost. The gas gauge wasn't exactly comforting either. He found a wide-ish spot in the road and did this careful, multi-point turn, the truck crunching and groaning over the gravel. Now here's the part that matters. On the way down, I didn't see much. I was in the passenger seat, and all I could make out was the slope of the mountain beside us. Once it got properly dark, maybe 20 minutes into that wrong road drive, everything outside the headlights disappeared into this thick black. But on the way back up, I saw something. And I need you to understand what I mean when I say I saw it. Not like a shadow, not like a trick of the eyes. I mean, in that instant when the headlights sweep across something and your brain goes, that is a person. About halfway back up the mountain, off to the right side, maybe 30 yards, maybe a little more, I saw what looked like a young girl sitting on a stump. She was facing away from the road, like she was turned slightly from us, and she was wearing a white nightgown. Her hair was long and dark, straight down her back to about the middle, and she was holding something against her chest. It looked like a teddy bear, or maybe one of those soft stuffed dolls. Something a kid would cling to. The weirdest part, What sticks with me the most is that she seemed to stand out against the darkness. Like the white of the gown wasn't just catching the light, it was present, almost luminous. Not glowing like a flashlight or anything dramatic, just unnaturally clear, like she didn't belong to the same darkness as everything else around her. And even after the truck passed and the headlights moved on, I swear I could still see her for a second, like my eyes held onto the image. I remember blurting out, "Dad, did you see that?" He was tense already, focused on the road, and he just went, "See what?" I told him, "A girl, sitting out there, alone, in the middle of nowhere." Not long after we got off that mountain road, like not even a huge stretch of time later, we hit a little gas station. The kind where you fill up first, then walk inside to pay after. Dad got out, started pumping gas, and before he went inside, he asked if I wanted anything. Obviously I did. I told him what snack I wanted, and I reminded him, again, about the girl. He nodded and said he'd tell the clerk. He came back with my drink and my snack and slid into the driver's seat like it was just another stop on the way home. And I asked him, right away, "Did you tell them? About the girl?" He said yes, but I stayed in the truck. I didn't hear the conversation. I didn't see anyone react. I have no proof he actually said anything at all. And then we drove home, late, quiet. Here's what messes with me. I still don't know what I saw. I've gone through phases where I tried to label it, ghost, missing kid, some kind of local legend I just didn't know about. For a while I even wondered if it was one of those creepy folklore things people talk about online, but the more I read, the less it fit. I've looked up records. I've tried searching the area, as best as I can remember it, and there's just nothing. No clear reports that match. No obvious tragedy that lines up. And over time, the exact location has gotten fuzzy, like the mountains themselves swallowed the details. There weren't houses out there. No streetlights, no mailbox, no sign of a nearby homestead, at least not that I remember. Just forest. An old mountain road that felt like it used to belong to logging trucks and nothing else. And the other thing, this part really gets under my skin. My dad denies it ever happened. Completely. Like he genuinely doesn't remember, or like he refuses to remember. I can't tell which is worse. So that's why I'm saying it like this, straight to you. I'm not claiming I solved anything. I'm not even claiming it was paranormal. I just know that one night on a mountain road in West Virginia, I saw a little girl in a white nightgown sitting on a stump, holding a stuffed toy, waiting in the dark like she'd been there forever. And I've never been able to explain. Okay, so I should probably start with a little context, because otherwise this is going to sound completely unhinged. My partner, Lena, and I got engaged in late 2015, and right around that same time, I'd just started a new job that had me driving all over the place. We moved into our first apartment together that winter, one of those older complexes built in the late 70s, not super run down, just dated. Brown doors, weird carpet, that kind of vibe. The whole place was built along a hillside, with a handful of buildings stacked up the slope like steps. That first night, we had basically nothing. An air mattress, 2 pillows, and our little dog Mochi, a tiny spaniel mix, maybe 12 or 13 pounds soaking wet. And I remember lying there thinking, why does this feel like someone else is in here with us? Not like a boo moment, more like the air was wrong. But we brushed it off. New place, new sounds, new nerves. Then the little stuff started. At first, it was lights. We'd leave the living room light on for Mochi when we ran out and come back to find it off and the hallway light on instead. Or we'd swear we turned something off, and later it'd be glowing like we never touched it. For a while, we blamed each other. Like, no, you left it on. No, I didn't. You know how it goes. But then Mochi started acting weird. She'd sit up like she heard something, then suddenly bark and sprint down the hallway like she was chasing an invisible intruder, right up to the front door. We assumed it was neighbors on the stairs, but that didn't fit. We'd hear actual footsteps outside, and she wouldn't react at all. But those moments when there was nothing, that's when she'd lose it. One day, Lena worked late, and I was out of town for my job. Mochi was in her crate longer than usual, and when Lena got home, our dog had a nail broken almost down to the quick. Not a snagged nail. This looked like something had twisted it. The emergency vet patched her up and said she looked fine otherwise, but after that, we barely used the crate. It just felt wrong. And then we had the first, okay, what the hell was that moment. Lena's brother, Dylan, came over one afternoon. She was telling him all the weird little things, and he's laughing, waving it off like we're being dramatic. And I swear to you, the moment he says, "You guys are overthinking it," a metal baking sheet we had wedged in the entry closet suddenly launches out and slams into the inside of the front door. Not falls, not slides. It came out like someone grabbed it and threw it. And the stupid part is, we stood there in this heavy silence, all three of us, just staring at the closet like it might do it again. Dylan didn't laugh after that. Closet stuff became a theme. We'd hear the latch click, then the door would slowly open by itself. Not swinging wildly like a draft, just creeping open like someone was easing it from the inside. There was also this locked utility door in our second bedroom, the HVAC closet. No knob, deadbolt. Only maintenance had the key. One day, Lena's sitting at her computer and she hears a click, like a lock turning. The door opens. Just opens. Like someone unlocked it from the other side. We called maintenance. They acted annoyed and insisted it must have been loose. Sure. Another time, we'd hung a full-length mirror on the outside of that bedroom door so Lena could check her outfit before leaving. We were goofing around one evening, kind of play-chasing each other, and she closed that door gently. Not slammed. Barely even a thud. The mirror exploded. That was the point where we stopped joking about it. And then the seeing things started. One morning, Lena took Mochi outside, just down the hill near a patch of trees. She came back in, pale and quiet, and told me she saw a figure, humanoid but wrong somehow. Like it had a kind of tall headpiece or crown shape. No clear face, no clear gender. It stepped behind one tree, and when she stared at that tree trying to make sense of it, it leaned out from behind another tree farther away, like it had moved without walking. We started digging online, trying to find anything, and we found this story about construction in a nearby area years ago, workers accidentally disturbing what was believed to be a burial site. The remains were later reburied in a cemetery, on the same hill. I'm not saying that's definitely connected. I'm just saying we read that and sat there like, oh, great. But the worst stuff didn't feel old or sad. It felt predatory. Later on, after I switched to a night shift job, Lena was home alone one evening. She'd just cleaned the kitchen and was in bed winding down when she heard what sounded like absolute chaos. Pots and pans clanging, things crashing, like someone was wrecking the kitchen. And then she heard a voice. Not loud, not screaming, just clear as day in her head. Lock the bedroom door. So she did. And right after she locked it, she saw shadows under the door, like someone standing right outside. She said the air felt thick, like the room had filled with something heavy and hateful. She stayed frozen in bed until sunrise. In the morning, the kitchen was spotless, not a single thing out of place. Another night, she woke up and saw something kneeling beside her side of the bed. It looked like it was dressed in black, but the face was pale, too pale, like bone under skin. And it had something on its back, like spines or feathers, she could never decide which, and it smiled at her. Then it dipped down and disappeared under the bed. She didn't scream. She couldn't. She said it felt like her body forgot how. And I didn't have a lot of experiences like that, until I did. One night I woke up to Mochi trying to climb into bed, which she almost never did. I lifted her up, and the moment I did, it was like the temperature dropped and the whole apartment filled with this pressure, like a storm cloud inside the walls. I turned toward the ceiling and saw a dark mass coming down through it, like the ceiling wasn't even there. It wasn't shaped like a person exactly, but it was huge, easily 6 feet tall if it stood upright. And it had this spread out shape, like a cape or wings extending several feet on either side. My brain went fully primitive. I pulled the covers over Lena, over the dog, over myself, like a blanket could fix this. And I just laid there, shaking, trying to pretend sleep was a force field. Eventually the heaviness faded, like it left. Another time, I got up to use the bathroom, and for some reason I went to the hall bathroom instead of the one in our bedroom. I flicked on the hallway light, and it started dimming, like someone was slowly turning a dial down. Then the bathroom light did the same thing. I stood there, and this icy panic hit so fast I swear my body just shut down the need to pee out of self-preservation. I ran back to the bedroom and blurted out, half asleep and terrified, "They're coming." Lena barely registered it at the time, but the next morning I told her what happened. And of course, the lights worked perfectly fine, like nothing ever occurred. We also had a neighbor, sweet woman, young kid. One time Mochi was still alive and we brought her over. Our dog started pacing the apartment like she was guarding it, moving room to room like she was tracking something. And the neighbor's toddler kept smiling and waving at empty space in the corner like someone was playing peekaboo. That same neighbor told us her lamp once turned on even though it was unplugged, and the bulb had burned out days before. She looked genuinely freaked out when she told us, like she hated even saying it out loud. Eventually we had a small group of paranormal investigators come by. They didn't burst in with holy water or anything dramatic. They mostly walked around, asked questions, listened, ran some devices. The only real takeaway was, they agreed something felt off. Not boo ghost off, more like the apartment was a place where boundaries didn't behave normally. We moved. Same property owners, different city, newer apartment. And it really was better, but not totally normal. There, things would vanish and reappear days later in ridiculous places. Keys in a kitchen drawer we never used, a missing shirt folded in a basket that had already been emptied. And outside at night, we'd sometimes see these small shapes, about the size of a cat or raccoon, moving along the fence line way too fast, like they weren't exactly physical. Both of us also saw something that looked like a child running along the fences between the neighboring houses, except it moved wrong, too smooth, too quick, like it was skipping frames. Inside that second place, there was this little corner of your eye presence too, childlike energy, like it was playing hide and seek. You'd catch it darting behind a doorway, and when you turned your head, gone. We eventually bought a house and moved again. And look, life's normal now in a lot of ways. But even here, we still get the occasional disappearing and reappearing object thing. Manageable, annoying, weird. Lena and I half joke that one or both of us is followed, because it's like whatever that first apartment was, it didn't fully stay behind. And the biggest twist is, before all this, I didn't believe in any of it. I was the guy trying to rationalize everything. electrical issues, drafts, dogs being dogs, stress. But after you've seen enough, your brain runs out of excuses. So yeah, I don't know what we ran into. I've heard people suggest a spirit tied to the land. I've heard people say something darker, something that imitates, feeds on fear, pushes into your life. All I know is that apartment on the hill didn't feel empty. It felt occupied. And whatever was there noticed us. So this happened about 5 years ago, and I'm not exaggerating when I say it still keeps me up sometimes. Let me back up a little. My mom married this guy, I'll call him Darren, and we moved into his house. From the outside, it was just a house, normal. But the second we started living there, everything felt slightly off in this way that's hard to explain without sounding dramatic. It wasn't like constant chaos or obvious horror movie stuff. It was more like the house had moods, like certain rooms carried a weight you couldn't shake. And honestly, the easiest way to describe it is by walking you through the spaces. First, the basement. I hated that basement. Not because it was gross or creepy looking, though it kind of was, but because of the feeling. Every time I went down there, I felt this weird pressure, like something was aware of me. And the worst part was when I'd climb back up the stairs. I'd get this sensation, this heavy, pleading kind of pull, like something wanted me to stay down there longer. Not in a "it's going to grab you" way, more like it didn't want to be alone. Like it was tired of being ignored, tired of being left behind. And the deeper I was in the basement, the stronger that feeling got. It was like being quietly begged by something you couldn't see. Then there was the dining room and living room area. This is the part that makes my stomach knot up, even now. There was this shadowy presence, this shape, that would pace back and forth in a certain stretch of the room. And I swear to you, it moved like it was copying Darren. Not perfectly mimicking him exactly, but following the same pattern, like it had learned his steps. Sometimes I'd sit outside on the front porch. There was this big window that gave you a clear view into the living room, and if I looked in from out there, I'd see it. That shadow would move in slow loops, almost like it was waiting. Like it knew I was out there and it was just circling until I finally came back inside. I started doing this thing where I'd pretend I didn't see it, because somehow acknowledging it felt like the wrong move. And the dreams. Oh my God, the dreams. Living in that house gave me the most vivid, ugly dreams I've ever had. Not symbolic dreams, not weird random stuff. I mean dreams that felt like full, detailed memories. One night, I dreamed someone broke into the house through the basement. In the dream, they were furious, demanding Darren come out and show himself. That's the phrase that stuck with me. Make yourself seen. Like he was hiding, like he'd done something, like he owed them something. A few days after that, I came home late and saw a car in the driveway that I didn't recognize. And there were people getting out, strangers, talking like they were confident. I distinctly heard someone say, "This is the right place." It hit me like ice water because I was home alone. I didn't confront them. I didn't ask anything. I just rushed inside, locked the door, and stood there listening, waiting for the knock that never came. They didn't approach. They didn't even circle the house. And later, this is what messes with me. I couldn't stop wondering if the car was ever really there at all. Like, did that actually happen? Or was it the house bleeding into my head? Then there was my mom's bedroom. My mom started covering it at night, just so she could sleep. And she had her own dreams too, vivid ones. One morning she told me she dreamed of her grandmother, Nana Ruth, who had passed away years before, standing there, dead serious, saying, "You need to remove the item in the basement." The item. We couldn't figure out what she meant. We searched down there, looking through storage, old boxes, corners, everything. Nothing made sense, but there was this one area, way in the back, where the basement seemed to end. Except it didn't. There was a section that felt sealed off, like a room behind a wall. The air back there felt wrong, dense, quiet in a way that wasn't peaceful. And at night? At night, it sounded like someone was in the hallway. Not like footsteps you can brush off as the house settling. I mean pacing, back and forth, and sometimes a dragging sound, like something being pulled. And scratching, soft at first, then sharper, against doors. It happened whether I was alone or whether the whole house was full of people. I used to sleep with my door locked, every night. I'd tell myself it was just a habit, just being cautious. But deep down, I think I was trying to create one small boundary the house couldn't cross. Eventually, my mom and Darren separated, and we moved out. And once we were gone, I did what you do when you've been holding your breath for years. I started digging. I searched for anything, history, incidents, old owners, anything that could explain why that place felt so hidden. But here's the part that makes everything feel even stranger. I couldn't find anything. Not just no news articles or nothing dramatic happened. I mean, I could barely find records. No clear history, no normal trail. Even information about Darren buying the house felt like it wasn't there, like it had been wiped or sealed or tucked away where regular people can't reach. It was like the house didn't want to be known. And sometimes I wonder if whatever was there wasn't trying to hurt us at all. Maybe it was warning us. Maybe it was trying to get us out, the only way it could. Or maybe it was lonely. Or angry. Or something in between. There's more. There's always more with a place like that. But even telling you this much, I can feel that old tension in my shoulders, like I'm back in that hallway again, listening to something pace outside my door, pretending sleep is possible. Okay, so until 2 nights ago, I would have told you, pretty confidently, that I don't do ghosts. Spirits? Sure, maybe. Weird energy, eerie vibes, whatever. But an actual, in-your-face, something is here with you kind of presence? No, not me, not my reality. And then I finally take this long overdue vacation. My family covered the travel and let me stay at their place overseas, which sounds amazing, right? Like, perfect setup. Free stay, different country, break from work. I genuinely thought I was about to breathe again. Except, this house is haunted. Like, actively, unapologetically haunted. And the worst of it hits between midnight and about 4 in the morning. I'm not even talking about big dramatic movie stuff where you see a floating woman in a hallway. It's subtler than that, which somehow makes it creepier. You'll hear footsteps when everyone's in bed. You'll catch a shadow moving where it absolutely shouldn't be. There are these little bell-like sounds sometimes, like tiny chimes, but not in a cute wind chime on a porch way. More like a warning. And then there's the sound of things shifting, like someone's pushing a chair leg against the floor, or dragging something just an inch and stopping. And the voice thing? That one gets under my skin the most, because you'll hear someone call your name in a voice that sounds almost right. Like your brain recognizes it, but your gut says, nope, not that. The first time it happened, I actually sat up thinking someone needed me. But the hallway was empty. Totally empty. And the doors. I hate the doors. I hate them so much. Not slamming, just the little clicks, like a lock turning. then the soft, slow creak of a door opening, then closing again. Like whatever it is has all the time in the world and wants you to know it. I keep trying to convince myself it's the house settling, or weird airflow, or old hinges. I've tried every logical explanation I can grab onto, but it's happening too consistently, and it always ramps up after midnight like it's on a schedule. Here's the thing. I needed this vacation. I'm not being dramatic. My job has been grinding me down for months. I've been walking around permanently tired, like my body forgot what rested feels like. And sometimes, when it gets really bad, I get this tight ache in my chest, like stress has claws in there. I hate it. So imagine, I show up here already drained, and the haunted house decides I don't get to sleep. I've slept maybe 10 hours total in the last 3 days. That's not an exaggeration. I'm running on fumes and dread. And now my chest is doing that same stressed out ache it does when I'm overloaded at work, which is so unfair because I came here to escape that. My family kind of treats the haunting like bad plumbing. Like, yeah, it's annoying, but you get used to it. Which is insane to me, but they've lived with it for a while, so I guess they've built this mental callus. They told me, very casually, that a priest came once, a Catholic priest, and separately, a medium too. And both of them, independently, were like, yeah, this isn't just a quirky ghost situation. They used the word demonic. Like, what do you even do with that? And then there's the basement. Everyone avoids the basement. Not in a, meh, it's creepy down there way. In a, we do not go down there unless it's daylight and absolutely necessary way. They call it the hot spot. Like it's a bad signal area, but for your soul. The first time I asked what was down there, my cousin Eli just looked at me and went, "No, seriously, don't." So I didn't. But even without going down there, I'm still waking up, both nights like clockwork, somewhere around 2 or 3 a.m. It's like my body gets yanked out of sleep, fully alert, heart thudding, eyes wide open. And once I'm up, that's it. I'm stuck listening to the house do its weird little routine. The steps, the shifting sounds, the faint ringing, the door clicks, the almost voices. And I'll lie there staring at the ceiling, trying to bargain with myself. Just ignore it. Just breathe. You're safe. But it's hard to feel safe when it feels like something is moving around just outside your room, like it owns the place. And no one's been hurt, technically. That's what everyone keeps saying. Nothing bad has happened. As if the only thing that counts as bad is getting dragged across the floor or something. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here barely functioning, exhausted, chest aching, nerves shredded, wondering why I ever thought this was going to be restful. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm in this beautiful place I should be enjoying, and instead I'm counting hours of sleep like they're gold coins, listening to doors unlock in the middle of the night, and trying not to spiral. And I genuinely need someone to tell me, like I'm a real person sitting across from you, how am I supposed to get any sleep in a house like this? So, this all went down in late August, and I've been sitting with it ever since. I figured I'd finally tell the story the way it felt in the moment, because I still don't totally know what to make of it. For a little background, I'm a Michigan student filmmaker, freshly graduated, and over the summer I shot my thesis project. It was a short western, and we had this incredible location lined up, an old Wild West themed resort out in the Irish Hills. It had that vintage, half-faded charm, like the place had been pretending to be a town for decades and forgot how to be anything else. Earlier that summer, I'd done a tech scout with a buddy and the property manager. She was this practical, no-nonsense type, but even she casually mentioned that the place had its moments. Unexplained noises, little weird incidents, stuff moving where it shouldn't. She laughed it off, like, it happens, and me and my friend, being the kind of people who love spooky nonsense, got all excited and joked about doing a ghost hunt. That was it. We didn't really linger on it. Fast forward to the shoot. A day early, I arrived with 2 crew members, Miles and Tessa, to get everything prepped. Nothing dramatic happened at first, but around 1 a.m., we wandered over from the motel area to the Old West town set to grab some B-roll. And I'm not saying I saw anything. I'm just saying I felt wrong the whole time. Like my body had decided we weren't supposed to be there. We also caught this strange little speck on camera, almost like a tiny point of light, that sort of looped and tracked perfectly along the edge of a roofline in frame. Could have been a bug or dust, sure, but it moved like it was following something. The first day of shooting went smoothly overall. Busy, hot, exhausting, normal filmmaking chaos. But at one point, one of our crew, Raya, told me she heard whispering as she walked past one of the rooms. Clear enough that she actually stopped and listened. She opened the door, expecting to catch someone messing around, and there was nobody inside. What freaked her out was the layout. That room had a connecting door that led into our room. So we deadbolted it from our side and shoved the key for the other room somewhere out of reach. Just in case, you know? You do that little, let's not invite trouble thing, even if you don't admit out loud that you're doing it. That night, most of the crew went down the road to our campsite to drink and blow off steam. My friend Jordan crashed early in the motel room. I stayed up in the motel's common room, talking to my girlfriend on the phone and building the next day's schedule. It started raining hard, real steady, heavy rain. But here's the thing, there wasn't wind. None. The trees weren't thrashing, nothing like that. And then I heard this massive crash against the outside wall behind me. Not a little bump, not a branch scraping. It sounded like something big got slammed into the building. I remember going quiet mid-sentence, just listening, waiting for a follow-up sound, anything. My girlfriend tried to calm me down, like, probably a tree. But the next morning I checked. The closest tree was nowhere near the wall, like, not even close. And with no wind, it just didn't add up. And then I heard voices outside. 2 distinct voices, different tones, like 2 people having a conversation, just out of view. Not yelling, not whispering, just talking. And it didn't sound like my crew. It sounded like strangers. That's when I decided I was done being brave. I shut everything down, hurried back to our room, and went to bed like I could outrun the vibe. Later, around 2 a.m. or so, Jordan woke up and wandered out. Around the same time, Miles, Tessa, and Rhea came back from the campsite and decided to go night swimming in the pool. As they walked outside, they noticed that a bunch of patio chairs and one of those umbrella tables had been knocked over. They didn't remember it being like that. And then this cat just appeared, like it had been waiting. None of us had seen a cat there at all the previous day, and suddenly, here's this cat acting like it belonged to the place. A little while after that, Jordan went back into the common room and later told me they experienced the same thing I did. That edgy feeling, the peripheral movement, the sense the room was crowded somehow. Out by the pool, it got worse. Miles told me he heard something coming down from the hill, from the direction of the Old West town. At first, he thought it was one of us messing around, but then he noticed the footsteps didn't have a normal rhythm. It wasn't like step, step, step. It was like step, rustle, 2 steps, rustle, step. A stilted, uneven approach, like whatever it was didn't move the way an animal or a person usually moves. They turned off their music to listen, and all 3 of them heard it. As it got closer, Miles and Tessa both said the air felt different, like the pressure dropped. like the space around them thickened. At the same time, Jordan, still in the common room, got hit with this wave of dread so strong it made them move without thinking. They said it felt like their body already knew something was happening outside. They bolted toward the pool. When Jordan got there, the other three were standing with their phone flashlights trained into this bushy area between the pool and the hill. The cat was there too, and it didn't seem friendly anymore. It was agitated, circling, then slipping through the fence line and sitting down directly in front of the group like it was bracing itself. They couldn't see anything in the bushes, nothing reflective, nothing moving. But the second their lights dipped off for a moment, Miles swore he saw eyes. A pair of eyes staring back from inside the brush. That was it. No debate. No, maybe it's nothing. They all sprinted back into the common room and basically barricaded themselves in. And this is the part that still sticks to me. The cat followed them, but it would not come inside. It stayed right outside the door, sitting like a guard. If anyone went near the exit like they were thinking about stepping out, the cat would get up and physically position itself in the way, like, no, don't. And if the door stayed open for more than a few seconds, the light fixture near the doorway would flicker, hard. Not a gentle little flutter, like a stressed-out pulse. They spent the rest of the night feeling watched. Not in a vague, spooky story way, in a very specific, very bodily way, like your skin knows before your brain does. And then toward the end of the shoot, we kept finding our camera batteries knocked loose from the chargers. Like you'd set them in, they'd be fine, you'd turn your back, and they'd be disconnected. Over and over. It became a running frustration until it stopped being funny. I'm still not sure what happened. If you want the skeptical angle, sure, maybe it was a coyote. Maybe it was some animal moving weird through brush. Maybe the voices were people farther down the road, and the rain carried sound strangely. But none of that explains the timing, or the pressure drop feeling, or the dread that hit multiple people at once, or the cat acting like a tiny bouncer with a job to do. I don't know. I just know it was a strange couple of days, and that one night especially felt like the location stopped being a set and started being something else entirely. Hey, thanks for letting me share this. I'm not the kind of person who goes looking for ghosts. Honestly, I've always been pretty skeptical about anything paranormal. But a couple of moments I've had out in rural eastern Finland, they left me with this quiet, lingering unease that I still can't fully explain. So the first thing happened one summer, a few years back. A friend of mine, Sadi, told me about this gorgeous little spot by a lake, one of those places locals mention like it's a secret you have to earn. I went there with my boyfriend at the time, Mika. It was one of those bright days where the air smells like pine needles and warm stone, and everything feels simple. When we got there, it really was beautiful. Calm water, tall pines, birds calling from somewhere you can't quite see. But almost immediately, something felt off. Not dramatic, not like a horror movie, more like my body knew something my brain didn't. And then I noticed something that didn't fit. There was this open patch, almost like a small clearing or meadow, soft grass, a few wildflowers, the kind of space you don't usually stumble upon in the middle of thick pine forest. It looked kept, even though no one was keeping it. And I remember thinking, this doesn't just happen by accident. In places like that, a clearing often means there used to be a house. People lived there once. A life existed there. I tried to brush it off. I told myself, you're just tired, you're overthinking. We walked around, took photos, even sat by the shore for a while. But the feeling wouldn't lift. It was like a weight in my chest, like someone was standing behind me even when I turned around and there was nothing there. Later, months after that trip, I heard a story about the area. Someone at a cafe in a nearby village mentioned that there had been a small homestead there long ago, and the rumor was dark. The owner, they said, was a woman people avoided. Folks whispered that she practiced some kind of folk magic, maybe just old beliefs, maybe superstition, maybe something people didn't understand and turned into fear. But the part that made my stomach drop was this. They claimed her child died in the lake. Not an accident, something intentional. And after that, the woman supposedly vanished from the village life entirely, and later was found dead as well. Now, I'm not saying I believe all of that. Small communities carry stories like that the way wind carries smoke. Bits of truth mixed with exaggeration, passed from mouth to mouth until it becomes legend. But the way I felt there, that sudden certainty that something was wrong, it made the rumor cling to me in a way it normally wouldn't. And then there's the second thing. This one hits closer because it happened at my own home. I live out near Kumo, further east. Quiet roads, lots of forest, the kind of place where history feels closer because the land remembers. That area saw fighting during the war, and you grow up hearing little pieces of it, but it's easy to keep it at arm's length, until something makes it feel real. One evening, I remember it was early winter, already dark by late afternoon. I was home alone. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet where you can hear the refrigerator click. My cat, Nellie, was curled up asleep on my lap. I was just sitting there, half watching the snow drift past the window. And then, all at once, Nellie snapped awake. Not slowly, instantly. Head up, ears forward, like a switch flipped. She stared at the hallway door the way she does when someone comes inside. And I mean the exact way. Alert, focused, almost expectant. I actually spoke out loud without thinking. I said, "Did someone come in?" Of course, no one answered. Not the cat. Not anything. I told myself it was nothing. Cats are cats, right? Maybe she heard a mouse in the wall. Maybe a pipe clicked. But I'll be honest, my skin felt prickly, like I'd walked into a room mid-conversation. Over the years, there have been other little things too. A soft thud from another room, like something falling off a shelf. Only I'd go look and nothing had moved. Or I'd hear a faint scrape, like a chair leg shifting, when no one was there. Nothing huge. Nothing I could point to and say, that's proof. Just a collection of small moments that leave you standing still, listening. And then recently, I visited a local museum exhibit about the Winter War. I expected maps, uniforms, old photos. But while reading one of the displays, I learned something I'd never been told. Something that made my throat tighten. There had been a field hospital very close to my home, practically next to it. And there was still an old outbuilding, what I always thought of as just a storage shed, where they used to keep the bodies before they could be transported. When I read that, I felt this slow, cold realization. Like the ground under my everyday life had another layer to it, another story. And suddenly, all those small sounds, Nellie staring into empty space, it didn't feel so random anymore. A couple friends have joked for years that that area has spirits. I used to laugh it off. But lately, I don't know. I'm still not out here claiming I've seen a ghost. I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything. I'm just saying, some places hold on to something. Memory, grief, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes, when you're quiet enough, or alone enough, you feel it noticing you back. So every summer, I go to this camp for about 2 weeks, always right at the very end of the season, like the last little stretch of summer before everything shifts back into normal life. And honestly, every single year it's been completely fine. Fun, loud, exhausting in the best way. Nothing spooky, nothing dramatic. But this past summer, I don't know how else to say it, something felt off. Like I kept getting these weird waves of déjà vu over and over. Little moments where my brain would go, wait, haven't I already done this? Haven't I already lived this exact thing? And it didn't stop when camp ended. If anything, it felt like it followed me home. The first night I got back, my bedroom was being painted, so I couldn't sleep in there. I set myself up in the living room instead. And yeah, my living room is kind of creepy at night. Like shadows sit heavier in there. But it's never been a huge issue. I figured I'd just put something on and pass out. I'm watching some random movie. Could have been on Netflix or Hulu. I don't even remember. When I hear footsteps. At first I'm not bothered. The sound is familiar. Heavy steps like someone walking from the hallway toward the living room. I automatically assume it's my brother, because that's exactly what it sounds like. Like he got up and wandered out. But then, a few seconds pass and it hits me. He isn't even home. He was staying at my dad's that night. And the second I remember that, my stomach just drops. Like my whole body went cold all at once. I pause what I'm watching and just sit there, completely still, trying to listen. I'm not even breathing right. I tell myself maybe it's the house settling. Maybe the TV made me imagine it. Maybe I'm tired. And then I hear it again. Footsteps. Not a creak, not a pop of the floor. Actual steps, like someone walking with purpose. I don't jump up. I don't scream. I just quietly change what I'm watching to something safer, like some cozy comfort movie, like my brain thinks that'll protect me. And I'm sitting there trying to act normal, like if I act normal, nothing can touch me. After a while, I decide to call my best friend. Her name's Talia, because we hadn't talked in a couple weeks and I missed her. I'm in the middle of telling her about camp, laughing a little, finally relaxing, and then I glance up for literally half a second. And I see something. This shadow, sliding back behind the wall in front of me, like it realized I noticed it and tried to hide. And I'm telling you, it wasn't a trick of the light. It wasn't a car passing outside. It moved in a way that was too smooth, too intentional, like liquid, like it had shape and it chose to pull away. My entire body reacted before my mind did. I just froze, and my voice got shaky, and I remember whispering, "Oh my God." I grew up Catholic, and when I get scared like that, it's like instinct takes over. I started praying out loud without even thinking, like full-on desperate prayer. And I actually yelled, something like, "I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ," which is not me. I'm not usually dramatic. I'm not usually the type to panic like that. But it felt like the air around me had changed, like something was in the room with me and I wasn't imagining it. The next day I called my dad, because he's the kind of person who's into paranormal stuff. He listens seriously when people talk about things like that. And he told me this whole explanation, like maybe I can see into other realities or something, and that what I saw could be what he called a shadow person. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know if I trust that as an explanation. It felt a little too convenient, like slapping a label on something you can't prove. But still, hearing a name for it didn't make me feel better. If anything, it made it feel more real. Then, not that long after, something else happened. I'm in the bathroom, and I hear someone softly singing right outside the door. It's a woman's voice, light, quiet, almost like she's humming but actually forming the words. And the song is Summertime Sadness, except in my head, I remember it being a different Lana song at first, like video games or something, because I remember thinking, Of course it would be Lana. Of course. And that's what freaked me out even more, because Lana is one of my favorite artists. Like, I know those melodies in my bones. I freeze immediately, just standing there, phone in my hand, not moving. And the first thing I do is hit record. I don't even step out yet. I just record, hoping the sound picks up so I can prove to myself I'm not losing it. Then I open the door and step out slowly, and the singing stops. The hallway is empty. No one is there. My mom wasn't home. No TV was on. No neighbors above me, below me, nothing. Just quiet. So I go back and listen to the audio, expecting at least something. Nothing. Absolute silence. Like the recording never captured a single sound in the first place. Later that night, Talia comes over, and I tell her everything. Like I'm trying to make it sound casual, but I can hear how nervous I am. She's like, "Show me the video." So I open my camera roll, and it's gone. The video I know I recorded isn't there. And that part wasn't as terrifying as it was just wrong. Like reality was glitching. Like something didn't want proof. Then the most recent thing. That's the one that still messes with me, because it felt so direct. It was late, like around 2 in the morning, and I went into the kitchen to get food because I couldn't sleep. Ever since that first night, the kitchen at night has felt hostile. I don't know how else to describe it. Like it's waiting for me to walk in there. But I was hungry, and I told myself I was done letting fear control me. So I put on a YouTube video, shoved my AirPods in, and tried to act like it was nothing. I'm grabbing something to eat when I hear it. Through the AirPods. Heavy footsteps again. That same weight. That same rhythm. Like someone walking nearby, close enough that my whole nervous system could feel it. My heart starts pounding so hard I can hear my pulse. I start praying immediately, quietly at first, then faster, because I'm trying to keep myself from spiraling. I snatch my food, grab my phone, and I'm basically speed walking out of the kitchen like, don't look around, just go. And as I'm going back toward my room, I swear to God, something says my name. Not a whisper I could dismiss, not a sound that could have been the video. It was clear, clean, like it was spoken right into the air behind me. I ran, like actually ran into my room and slammed the door behind me, shaking so badly I could barely hold my phone. And I told my friend, she's really religious, like really. And without even pausing, she goes, "That's the devil." And I just sat there afterward, in the dark, thinking, I don't know what any of this is, but I know what it felt like. And I know I'm not imagining how real it sounded when something called my name. So, this is going to sound strange right from the start, but just stay with me. I had this dream where I knew I was dreaming, like I was inside a dream that was happening inside another dream. And in it, I'm sitting at this oval table, the kind that feels too familiar even when you can't place where it's from. Across from me is a woman, maybe late 40s, early 50s, nothing dramatic about her. Soft brown hair pulled back like she'd done it 1,000 times, thin framed glasses, a calm face. The kind of person you'd pass in the grocery store and never think twice about. And beside me at the table is my partner. Let's call him Jonas. He's quiet, like he's listening but also bracing for something. The woman looks straight at us and says, very clearly, like she's delivering instructions, "We have to find Kemslauser house." Then she pauses, and her voice drops just slightly, like she's being careful with the words. That's where the trauma in Jonas's family is buried. Not metaphorically buried. It felt placed there, stored there, like the building itself was holding it. And then I wake up, but only from the inner layer of the dream. I'm still dreaming, just in a different scene, and somehow that makes total sense. In that half-awake dream logic, the very first thing I do is grab my phone and look it up. Not slowly, not doubting it, just, of course I'm going to search it. And here's the part that made my stomach flip. It comes up immediately, like it's a real thing, like it's been waiting for me. The search result is this unsettling snippet about a priest, someone described as unstable, dangerous, the kind of man whose name gets whispered long after he's gone. The story says he drove people into madness, and then, this is the part that chilled me, he put them to sleep. Not gently, not kindly. The phrase felt wrong, like sleep was being used as a weapon. In the dream, Jonas and I go right away. No debate, just movement. We're suddenly traveling, and I can't tell exactly where we are, but everything outside the car looks flat and gray-green, with that neat, damp countryside feeling. It could be the Netherlands. It could be somewhere along the German border. The sky hangs low, like it's pressing down. Then we reach it. The building looks old, heavy, and somehow unfinished, like it never decided what it wanted to be. And on the outside, there are these little letter tiles, like Scrabble pieces, stuck all over the facade. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. Different colors, different sizes, scattered without a pattern. And it's not cute. It's not artsy. It's like language broke apart and got pinned there. Like someone tried to spell something and gave up halfway, or like the house rejected meaning. While we're standing there, I call my mom. Let's call her Mara, because in the dream it feels urgent that she needs to know. I tell her, kind of breathless, I'm here. I found it. This place from my dream. Kemslauser house. And she just goes, flat as anything. Okay. No questions, no concern, just, okay. Like I told her I bought milk. That almost scares me more than the priest story, honestly. How normal she sounds while I'm standing in front of this nightmare house. We pull into the parking lot and everything feels grim. Not spooky in a fun way. Not, ooh, haunted. More like walking into a place where something bad happened and never really stopped happening. And then I remember we have our child with us. In the dream, I suddenly feel this sharp hesitation, like my body knows before my mind does. Do we really go inside with a kid? I wake up for real. For actual real. And the air in my room feels too bright, too normal, like the world is pretending nothing happened. A few minutes later, my mom, Mara, walks in, and I sit up and blurt out, "Do you know a place called Kemslauser House?" And she says, genuinely confused, "No." So now I'm wide awake, heart still racing, and I grab my phone and try to search it again. Nothing. No results. No building, no priest, no folklore. Like it never existed. Like the internet just closed its mouth. And I'm not ready to let it go, so I try asking ChatGPT, because if anyone's going to pull a thread, maybe it's that. At first, it doesn't find anything either. But I keep poking at it, giving it more detail, describing the priest, the legend vibe, the supposed location. And then it suddenly starts responding like it knows. It tells me Kemslauser House is tied to local legends. It describes eerie stories, strange phenomena, madness, visions, a priest who changed people. It even says it's in Germany, somewhere around Saxony-Anhalt. It reads like a confident little summary of something that's been documented for years. But here's the problem. I still can't find any outside sources. No articles, no maps, no photos, nothing. So I tell my sister, let's call her Elise, and she tries asking too. And when she does it, ChatGPT can't find it. It gives her nothing. So now I'm stuck with this unsettling situation where I dreamed a name I'd never heard before. In the dream, I found it instantly online. Awake, it doesn't exist. And the only place it appears is in one weird, inconsistent AI response that won't repeat itself. And I don't know what bothers me more, the possibility that my brain invented the whole thing, or the possibility that it didn't. Because that woman at the table, she wasn't dramatic, she wasn't mystical. She was calm and certain, like she was telling me where the fire started. And I keep thinking about those Scrabble tiles, all those scattered letters, like the house was made out of broken language, like it was trying to say something and couldn't. So I don't know. Maybe it was just a dream doing what dreams do, mixing fear and family and random syllables into a story that feels important. Or maybe it's one of those moments where your mind stumbles onto a name that shouldn't be there. Either way, I can't shake the feeling that I was pointed somewhere on purpose. And the strangest part is, I still want to know what's inside that house. Okay, so this happened a little over 15 years ago, back when I was about 16, and I still get that tight little shiver in my shoulders when I think about it. I grew up in this small Midwestern town where old houses are just part of the scenery. Big porches, creaky floorboards, those towering maples that make everything feel a bit older than it is. One Saturday, my parents, Mara and Glenn, dragged me along to an open house across town. They were in that let's just look phase, which everyone knows is never just looking. The house was this huge 2-story farmhouse, built sometime in the 1800s, I want to say 1860-ish, and it sat way, way back on the property. Like you drove up a long gravel lane and the house just waited for you at the end of it. The land was a few acres at least, with these mature trees and overgrown shrubs that made it feel like the place was half hidden on purpose. The yard was okay. Someone had tried, but you could tell nobody had really lived there in a while. And honestly, from the outside, it was kind of gorgeous. Not polished, not renovated, but charming in that slightly forgotten way. The kind of house where you can almost picture warm lamps in the windows, except instead, it had that tired old carpeting everywhere. Like that thick, beige, stubborn carpet that looks like it's survived 3 decades of spilled coffee and bad decisions. There were other people touring too, 4 or 5 little groups wandering around, so it wasn't empty. And yet, the second I stepped inside, something felt off. Not like a monster is going to jump out off, more like the house swallowed sound. Everything felt muffled and still, like the air wasn't moving. We started upstairs with the rest of the crowd. The rooms were big, technically, high ceilings, wide doorways. But up there, I felt weirdly cramped anyway, like my chest couldn't quite expand all the way. I remember getting dizzy too, like I'd stood up too fast and it never settled. I kept thinking, I just want to be outside again. My parents were chatting about paint colors and repairs like it was normal, and I was already mentally halfway out the front door. But we kept going, because that's what you do when you're 16 and trapped in family outings. Downstairs felt better. Still quiet, still strange, but at least I wasn't fighting that dizzy, claustrophobic feeling. I started relaxing a little, enough to think maybe I'd just gotten in my own head. Then the real estate agent, bright voice, jangly keys, the whole thing, started directing everyone to the basement. The door was right off the kitchen. And listen, you know those basements in old farmhouses? The ones that feel like they were dug out by hand and then politely ignored for the next 100 years? Yeah, that kind. The basement door opened onto steep stairs, and at the bottom was one lonely light bulb hanging from a cord like it was barely committed to the job. The walls were unfinished, the floor was dirt, and the whole place had that damp, mineral smell that sinks straight into your clothes. The steps looked like the kind where horror movies begin, where something grabs your ankles from the dark and everybody screams and nobody learns anything. We all went down together, like a little field trip into a nightmare. People poked around politely. "Oh, wow, look at the stonework. Needs new wiring," that kind of thing. I barely looked at anything because my whole body was focused on one thought: get me back upstairs. I remember exactly where I was. Third step from the top. And then, out of nowhere, something yanked my hair. Not like a breeze, not like static. A tug. Like someone reached from behind and grabbed a small fistful right at the crown of my head and pulled, sharp and deliberate. I froze so hard I swear my brain went blank. My first thought was, okay, I caught it on something. So I whipped my head around, looked at the wall, looked at the railing, looked for a nail, a hook, anything. There was this fire extinguisher mounted nearby, but I wasn't close enough to it, not even remotely. And there was nothing else, no protruding wire, no rough wood, nothing. And the second I realized there was no logical reason for that pull, I was done, completely done. I stepped into the kitchen like my life depended on it and basically power walked out of the house. My parents followed, confused, asking what was wrong, and I didn't even answer until we were in the car with the doors shut. Then I told them. Something pulled my hair on the basement stairs. They didn't laugh it off, which I appreciated. They got quiet, exchanged that look adults do when they don't want to freak you out, but also don't know what to say. And after that, it just became one of those stories we brought up every once in a while, usually over dinner, in that half-joking, half-serious tone. Like, remember that creepy farmhouse? Remember the hair thing? The kind of story you tell because it's the only one you've got that actually happened to you. Later on, the property got bought by this local guy who opened an Italian restaurant out front. He cleared out a bunch of the trees and the lawn to make room. Kind of sad, honestly, but the old house stayed put way back on the land. It's still there, last I heard, like it refused to budge. And then time passed. I went off to college. Life got busy. The memory faded into the general pile of weird teenage moments. Until one day, about 4 years after the open house, my mom called me with this, "You are not going to believe this," kind of voice. She'd been at an appointment with her hairstylist, and somehow the Italian restaurant came up, the one on that property. And the stylist goes, totally casual, something like, "Oh, that place? Yeah, there's supposedly an older woman's spirit out there. People say she messes with folks on the basement steps, especially men. Just little stuff, like she'll tug hair or touch you when you're going up." And here's the part that got me. My mom hadn't told her anything. She hadn't mentioned my story. The stylist just offered that up on her own, like it was common gossip. When my mom repeated that to me on the phone, I swear my entire scalp prickled. That same cold, crawling feeling climbed right up my spine, like my body recognized the moment before my brain could. My mom, of course, told the stylist what happened to me back at that open house. And the stylist was apparently like, "Yep, that's exactly what people say." So, yeah, that's it. The house is still standing. The restaurant is still open. And every so often I think, maybe I should go back, just to see. But if I'm being honest with you, there's a curious part of me. And then there's the much louder part that remembers that third step from the top and wants absolutely nothing to do with it. So, this happened a few years back, late summer of 2021, I think. One of my longtime friends, Marisol, came to stay with me for a couple nights. She was visiting from a small town out in southern Minnesota, and we did what we always do when we're together. Snacks, staying up too late, and watching something we knew we'd regret. That night's choice was a horror movie. lights out. If you've seen it, you know the whole thing hinges on this entity that can only move in the dark, and it vanishes the second the lights hit it. The character's name in the movie is Diana, and obviously, fiction. We knew that. We were joking about it, quoting lines, laughing at ourselves for even picking it, and still, about 15 minutes after the credits, Marisol wanted to go outside and smoke, and I was like, sure, I'll come with you. Because the air felt cool, and it was one of those nights where the world is quiet in a way that almost feels soft. Where I lived then was this little loop of houses, almost like a cul-de-sac, except it's more of a circle. There's basically one way in and one way out. This short road that goes up a hill and connects to the main street. On one side of the hill, there's an intersection with a couple restaurants and a strip mall. On the other side, there are just a few houses, and behind those, woods. We'd see deer sometimes, and cranes, and little things rustling around that you never fully see. During the day, that hill gets plenty of sun. At night, though, it turns into this weird pocket of darkness. There's a street lamp down near the main road, but the bushes along the hill throw these heavy shadows. So when you first step out of the neighborhood and start walking up, it's like the light just stops. Your eyes adjust, but it never feels bright enough to be normal. It was close to 11 p.m., and we were walking side by side, talking about something completely unimportant. Like we were debating which horror movie is actually the scariest, when Marisol suddenly slowed down. Then she lifted her arm across my chest, like a gentle, "Stop," and she whispered, "Do you see that?" I remember the exact way my stomach dropped, because she wasn't joking. She wasn't doing that playful, "ooh, spooky" thing. Her voice had that tightness people get when their brain is trying to decide if something is real. So I looked, really looked, straight ahead into that thick part of the hill where the shadows were darkest. And something was moving. At first, my brain tried to label it. Deer, crane, a person, anything, because that's what your mind does. But the more I focused, the more my thoughts just slid right off it. It was darker than the shadows around it. Not like hard to see, but like it was made of a deeper black, the way a silhouette looks when it doesn't belong in the lighting. And it wasn't walking normally. It was moving in this slow, circling pattern, almost like it was turning around itself, like it was pacing, but not forward, just rotating. And here's the part that still makes my skin prickle when I say it out loud. It looked like only legs. 2 long legs, too long, honestly. Not thin like a bird's, not thick like a deer's, just wrong in a way I can't neatly describe. And there was no torso, no shoulders, no head, no arms, nothing above where a body should be. Just legs, moving like they belonged to something that wasn't fully there. But Marisol saw it too. I could feel it in the way she went completely still beside me. Then one of us, maybe me, made a small sound. Not even a scream. Just that sharp inhale people do when they realize they're about to panic. And the thing shifted. It moved toward the side of the hill that led back into the neighborhood, toward my house, and then it was gone. Like it stepped into the darker edge and just erased itself. The whole sighting couldn't have been more than a few seconds, but it was enough. It was more than enough. I remember us both standing there, not speaking, because once you speak, it's real. And once it's real, you have to decide what to do next. Neither of us wanted to walk back toward my house, not after it went that way. So we kept going forward instead, toward the strip mall. We didn't even discuss it. Our bodies just chose the direction that felt safer. We went under the lights, stood near the storefronts, smoked like it was a chore we needed to finish, and tried to pretend we were normal people having a normal night. But we weren't. When we finally headed back, we held hands the entire way up that hill, like kids. like we could anchor each other to the ground just by staying connected. And here's what really messed with me afterward. A couple weeks later, I had two other friends over, Evan and Kira, and they ended up walking that same road at night without me. They came back pale, and before I could even ask why, one of them said, "Okay, don't freak out, but we saw something on the hill." Same place, same darkness, same impossible movement. After that, I started digging into local stories, urban legends, weird sightings, anything. I even posted about it online, hoping someone would say, "Oh yeah, that's just a heron doing something creepy," or "There's a known optical illusion there," or literally anything that would let my brain exhale. But I didn't get anything that fit. And what's wild is that I'm not someone who wants it to be paranormal. I've tried to talk myself out of it every way imaginable. I've wondered about hallucinations, fear contamination from the movie, misperception, stress, all of it. But the details don't line up neatly, especially because it wasn't just me, and it wasn't just one night. I haven't seen it in a long time, over 2 years now, but the fear didn't leave with it. That hill still feels wrong to me. Even now, if I have to walk alone at night, and I hear the crickets stop or the sound shifts, my whole body reacts like it's bracing for something. And sometimes I catch myself thinking, maybe I imagined it. But then I remember Marisol's voice, the way she reached her arm out to stop me. "Do you see that?" And I did. So yeah, I don't know what it was. I don't know what kind of thing can look like legs without a body. I just know that for a few seconds on that dark hill, something moved in a way that didn't belong to anything I've ever seen in real life. And I've been trying to make it make sense ever since. So, a little while ago, my friend Maya and I took a trip to Belgium to visit our friend Elise. Elise told us we'd be staying at her partner's family place while they were away. Nothing fancy, just somewhere with a pool, she said. You know, one of those don't worry about it situations. Except, it wasn't a house. It was a castle. I'm talking full-on 18th century storybook castle vibes. Stone towers, little turrets, and this faintly ridiculous moat that made me feel like we should have arrived by carriage instead of a rental car. The whole place sat back from the road, surrounded by wide lawns and stretches of trees that just kept going. We pulled into this long, elegant driveway, completely lined with tall trees that arched overhead like a tunnel. And as we rolled forward, the building grew bigger and bigger in the windshield until it started to feel unreal, like we'd accidentally driven onto a film set. Then we got closer to the front entrance and noticed the main door wasn't being used at all. Instead, someone had put up a sturdy gate across the entryway area, like a little fenced-off section right in front of the grand door, apparently so the dogs could be safely outside without roaming the whole property. And the dogs were losing it when we arrived. We could see them bouncing and scrambling behind the gate, all excitement and wagging tails. As the car crept closer, I started to make them out more clearly. There was a border collie stretched out low to the ground, another one springing up and down like it had springs in its legs. And then, between them, there was a third dog. And the second I really saw it, my stomach did this weird little drop. Because it wasn't just a big dog. It was wrong in the way it looked. This thing was tall and black, like truly pitch black, as if it drank the light around it. It had a sleek, short coat, but its limbs were long and oddly angular, like it was all elbows and knees. It reminded me of a lurcher or a greyhound shape, but heavier somehow, bigger through the chest, longer overall. Like it didn't quite fit the proportions my brain expects when it sees a dog. I leaned forward slightly in my seat, then twisted around toward Maya in the back and whispered, without even thinking, "Okay, what is that monster in the middle?" I didn't mean monster, literally. I was trying to be funny. but the word came out because I genuinely didn't know what else to call it. Maya didn't laugh. She just stared past me, eyes narrowed, and quietly went, "I was just about to ask you the same thing." And then, like the universe didn't want us lingering on it, we got distracted. Because the castle was right there. The grounds were enormous. The air smelled like wet stone and grass, and the whole place felt like you should speak softer just out of respect for it. We parked, dragged our bags out, started gawking at everything, and within minutes we were absorbed in the excitement of exploring. We spent the day wandering, through gardens, along little paths, near the edge of the water. And the two border collies trailed us everywhere, like friendly little tour guides. They were constantly underfoot, popping up beside us, reappearing around corners, following us like we belonged there. Hours later, at some completely random moment, it hit me like a tap on the shoulder. "Wait, where's the other dog?" I stopped and said to Elise as casually as I could, "Hang on, what happened to the third dog?" Elise looked genuinely puzzled. "Third dog?" She actually laughed a little, like she thought I was doing a bit. "What black dog? There are only two." And I remember this exact chill that went through me. Not dramatic, just cold realization. Because Maya and I looked at each other at the same time, both of us with that expression of, "Please tell me you're about to say you saw it too." And she did. Maya immediately goes, "No, Elise, there absolutely was a third one. It was massive, black, right between them." Elise's face shifted from amused to uneasy. She told us we must have been mistaken, or seeing things in the shadow, or maybe it was a trick of the gate and the collies moving around. But here's the thing. We described it to her the exact same way, without prompting, and our descriptions matched, too specifically to be coincidence. Elise tried to reason it out. She said maybe it belonged to someone who worked on the property, like a groundskeeper or a caretaker, and it just happened to be there when we arrived. That sounded plausible for about 30 seconds, until later on, when we did meet the caretaker on the grounds, and he didn't have a dog. And also, this is important, the dogs at the entrance had been contained behind the same gate, together, like they were all meant to be there. Elise insisted no one else's dog would have been locked in with hers. So then we're standing there with this incredibly simple problem that somehow had no simple answer. We both saw it. It was right there. And now, according to the person who lives there, it never existed. That night, because of course I did, I started searching online, trying to find literally any breed that matched what we'd seen. I went down the usual rabbit holes first: lurchers, deerhounds, mixes, working dogs. But the more I searched, the more I kept circling back to the same folklore references people always bring up when the description is large black dog. And that's when I stumbled onto stories about these regional black dog spirits, omens, guardians, wandering apparitions, different names depending on where you are. One mention that stuck in my head was a local legend tied to the area we were in. A story about a phantom black dog that shows up on old estates and near water, like it belongs to the land more than it belongs to any person. And look, I'm not saying I know what it was. I'm not pretending I can prove anything. I'm just telling you what happened, and the part that still bothers me. It wasn't like seeing something in the corner of your eye. It wasn't a shadow. It wasn't a quick glimpse. We watched it. We took it in. We commented on it. And then it was simply gone, like it had never been there at all. So if you've ever had an experience like that, where you and someone else see the exact same impossible thing, and you're left afterward trying to jam it into the shape of a normal explanation, I get it now. Because even thinking back on it, I can still picture that gate, the two collies, and that third shape in the middle. Too tall, too black, too strange, and I still don't have a satisfying answer for it. Hello, dear friends of the Paranormal M channel. Have you been having trouble sleeping lately? Don't worry, I'm here to help you drift off more easily with paranormal stories from all around the world. I really love this moment, sitting here with my microphone and keeping you company. Thank you for sending in your experiences, and please don't hesitate to share more new ones with me. And by the way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Now, let's get started. Hey, so I'm back, and this time it's not really my story. This one belongs to my mom. Well, my mom when she was little. And it's one of those things she tells in a quiet voice, like she can still feel it in her bones. She was around 6 years old, maybe 7. My grandparents had just moved into this small, older house. Nothing fancy, just a place they could afford at the time. Funny thing is, it was only a few doors down from where they ended up living later on, like life just kind of looped back around. They bought it from this woman who, I don't know, my grandma always described her as off. Not mean, exactly, just unsettling. Like she smiled a little too long or stared a little too hard. But my grandparents shrugged it off. People are quirky. You don't assume anything more than that. Anyway, after they'd been there a while, my mom, her name was Lila back then, started complaining about noises in her bedroom at night. Soft footsteps, like someone pacing just outside her bed. Then it would be little sounds, like something had dropped or slid across the floor. Except when she'd flick on the light, nothing was out of place. And you know how that goes when you're a kid. You tell your parents, "Something's in my room," and they hear, "I don't want to go to bed." So they blamed her. They'd shout up the stairs, tell her to stop messing around, and more than once she got in trouble and lost privileges just for crying out and insisting she wasn't doing it. She stopped talking about it after a while, not because it stopped happening, but because she learned nobody believed her. Then one night, this is the part my mom swears she remembers like a photograph. She was sitting up in bed, wide awake, because she'd heard it again. The slow steps, the faint creak, and suddenly, it got louder, like the room was waking up. Downstairs, my grandpa heard it too. Not the normal house settling kind of sound. This was heavy, rhythmic, like something was moving with intention. He went up the stairs fast, irritated at first, because he still assumed Lila was up there doing something. He opened her bedroom door, and he just froze. The pull chain on the ceiling fan, he said it looked twisted up on itself, like it had been wound tight, almost curled. And in the corner of the room, this old rocking chair was going. Not a gentle rock, not even a strong rock. It was moving like someone was grabbing it and shaking it back and forth, over and over, fast enough that the wood was creaking like it might split. And my mom, little Lila, was pressed flat against the wall, knees up, hands over her mouth, eyes huge, like she'd been trying to make herself invisible. My grandpa didn't say anything at first. He just stared, because it didn't make sense. There was nobody in the chair. No open windows, no prank, no explanation. Then, this is what really unnerves him, even now. Everything stopped at once. Not slowed down, not faded. It stopped like someone flipped a switch. He grabbed my mom and got her out of that room so fast she barely touched the floor. He took her downstairs, sat her in the kitchen, and then he went into his own room and shut himself in the closet. Not because he was hiding, because he didn't know what else to do. He started praying. Not casual praying, the desperate kind. The kind where you're bargaining with God and promising you'll change and just pleading for whatever that was to leave your family alone. But what they found under there made their stomachs drop. Right on the floorboards was this rough, ugly circle, symbols and markings that didn't look like a kid's scribbles. My grandma said it looked like it had been made with a mix of salt and something dark, crusted and old, like dried blood that had soaked in and stained the wood. They didn't debate it. They didn't try to clean it themselves. They called for help. A priest came by, more than once. He prayed through the house, room by room, and kept coming back for days. My grandpa said it felt lighter after that, like the air stopped pressing down on you, like you could breathe again. And later, through neighbors, through little bits of gossip that somehow always find you, my grandparents heard rumors about the woman who lived there before them. People said she wasn't just eccentric. People said she practiced things she shouldn't have. So yeah, that's my mom's story. And even now, when she talks about that rocking chair, she doesn't dramatize it. She doesn't need to. She just gets quiet, looks off somewhere far away, and says, "I don't care what anyone calls it. I know what I saw." Okay, so when I was a kid, one of my closest friends lived in this part of town that everyone whispered about. The kind of place people would point at when they drove by and say, "Yeah, that area's got history." Like old land, old stories, the whole vibe. My friend, let's call her Jenna, swore up and down her house was haunted. She'd talk about odd noises, weird cold spots, doors that didn't feel normal. And honestly, from my perspective, her house was incredible. It was in one of the nicest neighborhoods around, older but classy, the kind of place that felt established and kind of grand. And her mom, oh my gosh, her mom, Ms. Larkin, was basically the definition of a perfect stay-at-home mom. She decorated for every season like it was her personal mission. She baked like she was trying to win awards. I'm talking fresh pies, cookies, cinnamon rolls. Everything always smelled warm and sweet and safe. She threw the best holiday parties too. Jenna's house was basically the place everyone wanted to be. So I spent a ton of time there. Sleepovers, school projects, movie nights, you name it. But this one night, this is the night that still sticks with me. It was another sleepover at Jenna's. I don't even remember what we were celebrating, just that her dad was out of town, which matters. We did all the usual stuff, snacks, laughing too loud, staying up later than we should. Then it was finally time to crash. Her room was packed, like wall-to-wall sleeping bags and air mattresses. You couldn't see the carpet at all. I ended up on an air mattress right by her bedroom door, and her door was open, always. They always kept it open at night. And right outside the room, at the top of the stairs, they had this loud industrial fan they'd run as a noise machine. Jenna's family claimed the house made noises at night, creaks, shifting, little sounds, so they used the fan to drown it out. Personally, I hated that thing. It was just this constant, heavy humming that made it impossible for me to relax. And that night, I was stuck awake, listening to it like it was drilling straight into my brain. This was before everyone had phones on their pillows, so I didn't know what time it was. I couldn't see Jenna's clock from where I was. I was just lying there, staring into the dim hallway, annoyed and restless. At some point, I heard footsteps, not inside the room, outside it. I heard Jenna's mom's bedroom door open, and then I heard her walk across the hallway. And I knew it was her because her parents' room was directly across from Jenna's, with that fan sitting right between the doors. Also, Jenna's dad was gone, and all the other girls were asleep, so there was no confusion. Then I heard her start going down the stairs. And listen, those stairs had 2 steps that squeaked no matter what. You could tiptoe, you could step on the edge, you could try to float down like a cartoon burglar. Didn't matter. Those 2 steps always squeaked. And I heard them, clear as day. So I'm lying there thinking, okay, she's up. Maybe it's morning. And then I start hearing faint kitchen sounds downstairs, like cabinet doors, the clink of something being set down, that sort of soft morning movement. Nothing loud, just busy. And my brain immediately goes to food, because Ms. Larkin made the best breakfast. Like, legendary. She'd make chocolate chip pancakes and put out powdered sugar like it was a fancy restaurant. And she'd dust your pancakes perfectly if you asked, like the most gentle little snowfall over the top. So now I'm awake, because all I can think about is pancakes. Time passes. I don't know how much, but it starts to feel long. Like, if she's up making breakfast, shouldn't she be coming back up soon to wake everyone? And then the room starts to brighten a little. Not full daylight, but that soft, early morning glow. The kind that makes everything feel calm and golden. I'm still staring at the stairs. And then, oh my God, my whole body just freezes because I see Miss Larkin open her bedroom door and walk out and start walking toward the stairs, like she's just now getting up. And my heart drops because I'm sitting there thinking, no, 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 no. You already went downstairs. I knew it. I knew she had. I heard her door. I heard her cross the hall. I heard her take those steps. I heard those squeaks. And she never came back up. Not once. Not even for a second. But here she was, doing it again. I felt this cold wave hit me, like the kind that starts in your chest and spreads down your arms and legs until you're covered in goosebumps. Like my body understood what was happening before my brain could even form the words. And then, almost like the world was rubbing it in, I suddenly smelled it. Pancakes. Sweet, warm batter. Butter. And bacon, too. Salty and smoky. Except, I hadn't smelled that earlier. Not when I thought she was downstairs making breakfast. The smells only showed up now, when she was walking down the stairs for the first time, like a normal morning. I remember just lying there, completely locked in place, staring at the staircase, trying to make it make sense. A little later, she came back up, cheerful and normal, and gently woke everyone up for breakfast like nothing had happened. And that's the weirdest part. Nothing else happened that day. No big dramatic moment. No explanation. No one screaming or running out of the house. Just breakfast and laughter and chocolate chips and powdered sugar. But after that night, I started noticing things in that house more. Feeling things. Hearing things. Like once something had cracked open in my brain, it didn't fully close again. And I swear to you, I still don't know what I heard walking down those stairs the first time. But I know one thing for sure. Those 2 steps squeaked, and I heard them. So this happened in late February, and I can still remember how the air felt up there. Too quiet, like the building was holding its breath. I was working my evening shift at the school, and I decided I'd knock out the upstairs first. I always tried to do that, honestly. The second floor of the high school just didn't feel welcoming at night, and I wanted to get it over with as fast as possible. I started in this storage classroom, more like a dumping ground than an actual room. A few old desks were shoved in there, plus a bunch of computer junk and tangled cords and boxes. I'm sweeping, trying to stay focused, when I hear footsteps in the hallway. Not little creaks, not the building settling. Actual footsteps, steady, like someone was walking with purpose, coming from the far end of the hall. Here's the thing. My only coworkers that night were down in completely different areas. Nobody was supposed to be upstairs with me. So I go to the doorway, peek out, and the footsteps are still there, but the hallway is empty. No one. Not a single person. My stomach just dropped. I didn't even think. I backed into that storage room and pulled the door mostly shut, like that would somehow fix it. It was still light outside, so there was daylight spilling in through the classroom windows, which helped a little, but not enough. I stood there for a minute, broom in my hand, listening way too hard, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it. And that was just the start of the night. A while later, I moved a couple rooms down the hall. I had my earbuds in, music going, trying to keep myself calm and distracted, when I heard this sharp little ringing cut right through my playlist. It was quick, like, ding 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 ding. I pulled one earbud out because it was loud enough to feel wrong, like it didn't belong. And the second I did, it happened again. Same sound, same fast little burst, coming from the back right corner of the room. There were tables over there with computers on them, like a tiny computer lab setup. I stared at that corner like it was about to explain itself. I didn't see a bell anywhere, but apparently there was an old school bell stored in that room, maybe shoved in a box or buried under something. Still, it didn't sit right, because it didn't sound like something shifting or falling. It sounded like something ringing it on purpose. By around 6:30, I had to head back upstairs again, because my manager, Devin, decided it was a great time to hand me a job that wasn't even part of my usual routine, wiping down windowsills, which I almost never have to do. And of course, the room I got sent to? Yep, the bell room. By then, I was absolutely wiped. I was 16, had been at school all day, and I was taking this welding class that just drains you in every way possible. Mentally, physically, everything. All I wanted was to finish my shift and go home. So I'm wiping down the windowsills, trying to keep my eyes on what I'm doing, when the bell goes off again. That same quick burst of ringing. But right as it rings, I hear something else, something worse. I froze. Like, completely locked up. Rag still in my hand, half crouched by the sill, unable to move. And then, just for a second, I saw it. This small, dark shape, like a little black shadow, darting past the doorway and down the stairs. It moved too fast to make out details, but I saw it clearly enough to know I wasn't imagining movement. I stayed in that room afterward, just sitting there, trying to breathe normally again. It took me a solid 10 minutes before my body would cooperate, before I could stand up and feel like I could actually walk. Once I finally did, I got downstairs, signed out for the night, and left as fast as I could without looking like I was running. And yeah, that's one of the nights from February that I'll never forget. I still work that job, and I'm not gonna lie, I've gotten a little less jumpy over time. But that night, that one stayed with me. And if you ever want to hear more of the weird stuff that's happened there, I've got plenty. So, our cat Miso died. Kind of suddenly, the night before Thanksgiving. We knew she was old, like, we're guessing she's around 17 or 18 old. And the vet had warned us there were issues, mostly her spine and arthritis, but also her heart. Still, even when you know all that, you don't really expect them to be gone that fast. But that night, she passed at home. We did what you do when you're trying to make something unbearable feel a little more human. We wrapped her up, said a few shaky words, and we buried her in the backyard. It was quiet, cold, and honestly, it felt unreal, like my brain couldn't quite accept that she wasn't going to walk back into the room. And then two strange things happened. Not movie strange, just the kind of strange that lands in your chest and stays there. The first thing happened right after we came inside. It was around 2:20 or 2:30 in the morning, and we slid the glass door shut behind us. I was standing there taking off my shoes, still kind of in shock, and suddenly, fireworks. Not in the distance, not scattered around the neighborhood. It sounded like they were popping off right over the exact spot we'd just buried her. Now, we live near a park, so yeah, people do dumb stuff late at night sometimes. Drunk people, teenagers, whatever. I can explain fireworks. But what made my skin prickle was the timing. Nothing all night. Then the second we step inside after burying her, boom, boom, crackle. Right there. We just looked at each other like, are you kidding me? The second thing happened more recently, like yesterday. After she died, I bought this little garden cat statue, one of those solar ones that glows if it gets enough sun. I stuck it along the edge of the bushes near where we buried her. And I know this is irrational, but grief makes you do irrational things, and I just wanted there to be a small light out there at night. Like she wouldn't be alone. I would check it after dark, almost like a ritual. And sometimes it would glow, and sometimes it wouldn't, and I'd find myself talking about it out loud like a weirdo, wondering where she is now, if she's okay, if she's anywhere. I even told my partner Caleb that I might move the statue out to the middle of the patio during the day so it could charge better. Caleb wanted nothing to do with it, like zero interest in even looking at the spot, let alone touching anything near it. Which I get. We grieve differently. I can stare at death and poke at it and ask it questions. He would rather not. Then we had this big snowstorm. Wind, heavy snow, the kind that makes everything creak and scrape. And after that, I looked out the window and I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The statue had moved. And not in a way that made any sense. So picture this. Where I had placed it originally, the bush line dips inward, kind of like a shallow pocket. I'd set the statue between two small pale stones to keep it steady. The actual grave spot, where Miso is, was a slightly raised mound a couple feet away. The statue was no longer tucked in that little pocket. It was now 2 feet closer, sitting smack in the center of the mound, perfectly placed, like someone had lined it up on purpose. Not tipped over, not half buried, not knocked sideways into the bushes. Centered. And there was even a neat indent in the soil, like it had been pressed down evenly, on both sides, like by hands. That's what got me. The weather can move stuff, sure, but weather doesn't move something and set it down like it's making a decision. Wind knocks, snow slides. Nature is messy. This was deliberate. So of course my mind went to the worst place first. Who is coming into my yard? And then the thought I didn't want to have showed up anyway. What if it was her? I know how that sounds, I do. And I'm not even saying I believe it exactly. But grief is this weird doorway where your brain is both brutally logical and completely open to impossible things. So I stood there, with this statue planted right on top of where we buried her, and I had this rush of questions that felt ridiculous and also unavoidable. Is it a hello? Is it, I'm okay? Is it, I don't want it over there? Is it anger? Is it comfort? Is it nothing? I don't have answers. I really don't, and I'm not pretending I do. I put the statue back where it was originally, along the bushes, because that's where it makes sense practically, and it looks nicer there. But I'll tell you this, if it moves again, especially if it ends up centered like that again, I don't know what I'll think. Because I truly don't believe we have a creeper sneaking into our yard in a quiet, safe neighborhood just to reposition one little solar cat statue. And at the same time, I can't explain how it ended up like that. All I know is it rattled both of us, like deep in the nervous system. And maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just chance and weather and my grief looking for patterns. But she was family. She'd been with us for so many years, over a decade of routines and naps and tiny ordinary moments that add up to love. And it wouldn't totally shock me if some piece of her lingered, even if it's just in us, even if it's just in the way I still look out into the yard at night, hoping that little light is on. Hey, I've been going back and forth about sharing this, honestly. Not because I'm trying to convince anyone of anything, I'm really not. It's more like I'm trying to understand me, and I'm hoping that saying it out loud to someone who's willing to listen might help it make a little more sense. So, since I was a kid, like really young, I've seen things. Spirits. Not in a poetic way, I mean visually. Clear enough that I could tell you where I was standing, what the room smelled like, what the air felt like. Some of them felt gentle, almost like a quiet protection, and some of them didn't. Some felt wrong in a way that made my stomach drop, like my body recognized danger before my mind could explain it. One memory that still sticks with me. I was maybe 9, and I was in my aunt's hallway after everyone had gone to bed. The house was totally familiar, totally normal, and then it wasn't. The air turned heavy, like the temperature shifted without actually getting colder. And I saw someone, not anyone I knew, just standing there like they belonged. I remember my skin prickling, like every nerve woke up at once. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I just stood frozen, and it felt like that moment lasted forever. Even now, I can feel it in my chest when I think about it. As I got older, it changed. I don't always see things the same way anymore. Not as often anyway. But I sense them. It's like walking into a room and immediately knowing something's occupied, even if nothing's physically there. Like there's an atmosphere that doesn't match the space. Sometimes I'll be fine 1 second, and the next I'll feel this pressure behind my eyes, or this buzzing along my arms, and I'll just know something is nearby. And on top of that, I feel people's emotions so intensely it's hard to explain without sounding dramatic. It's not just empathy. It's like their feelings move into my body and set up camp. If someone's grieving, it hits my chest like a weight. If someone's angry, it's sharp, like heat crawling up my neck, like I want to run or fight and I don't even know why. And joy. Joy can be so bright it makes me almost dizzy, like a sudden rush of something electric. But the thing is, it doesn't feel like a choice. It's not like I decide to tune in. It just happens, and sometimes it's exhausting in a way I can't even describe. I also get dreams, and sometimes quick, sudden flashes when I'm awake that feel connected to people. Sometimes it's symbolic, like weird images that don't make sense until later. Other times it's uncomfortably specific. Like I'll dream about someone I haven't spoken to in years, and the next day I'll hear they've had some huge life event. Or I'll get this strong feeling that I need to reach out and say something. Not hello, but something very particular, like reassurance or a warning. There was one time with my friend, I'll call her Marin, where I kept seeing the same image in my head for days. Water on a kitchen floor, a cracked mug, and this intense feeling of, tell her to slow down. It felt ridiculous, honestly. I didn't want to sound weird. But it wouldn't leave me alone, so I finally called her and I was really careful about it. I didn't make it dramatic. I just said, "Hey, I don't know why, but I keep feeling like you need to slow down and be extra careful right now." And she got quiet. And then she told me she'd almost slipped the night before carrying boiling water because her hand cramped and a mug shattered on the floor. Like, I couldn't have known that. And moments like that mess with my head, because what am I supposed to do with that? Because none of this feels controlled. I'm not training it. I'm not trying to tap in. I'm not sitting down like, okay, spirits, let's chat. I don't practice anything. I don't seek it out. If anything, I've spent years trying to ignore it, or rationalize it, or push it into a box so I can just be normal and get through my day. And that's the thing. It doesn't feel powerful. It feels confusing, isolating, like carrying around a radio that turns on by itself, blasting things you didn't ask to hear. And I'm not here asking if that makes me psychic or special. That framing doesn't sit right with me. I'm not trying to claim anything. I'm just asking if anyone else has experienced something like this. Seeing presences when you're fully awake, feeling energy shifts, absorbing emotions like they're your own, having dreams that line up too closely to brush off. I'm genuinely open to different perspectives, spiritual, psychological, skeptical, as long as it's respectful. I'm not looking for someone to laugh at me or tell me I'm making it up. I'm looking for people who can help me make sense of something that's been part of my life for as long as I can remember. And if anyone wants me to go deeper into specific experiences, I can. I've got plenty of stories. I guess I wanted to start here. So, we moved into this little house in early fall of 2021, September, I think. And for a while, it felt normal, cozy even. Just me and my wife, Lena, trying to settle in, figuring out where everything goes, getting used to the creaks and the quirks. And then one night, not long after we'd unpacked, something happened that still makes my stomach tighten up when I think about it. Lena and I were downstairs watching TV. Eventually, I got tired and told her I was heading up to bed. She said, "Okay, I'll be right behind you." Super casual, nothing weird. So I go upstairs, get into bed, and I'm laying on my side with my back to the door, scrolling through my phone like always, and I hear footsteps come into the room. Not like, maybe the house is settling footsteps, like a person walking. Then I feel the mattress dip right behind me, like someone climbed into bed. The blanket shifts, the bed compresses, that unmistakable feeling when another body settles in. So I'm thinking, oh, Lena's here. But then, just a couple seconds later, I hear the kitchen sink turn on downstairs, and I hear dishes clink together like someone's rinsing something off. Instant adrenaline, like electric shock through my whole body. I whip my arm around, expecting to see Lena right there beside me, and the bed is empty. Empty. I sat up so fast I almost pulled something. I just stared at the spot where I swore someone had been, trying to make my brain accept it. Lena calls up from downstairs like, "Hey, I'm just gonna grab a glass of water." So she's down there, which means whatever I felt in the bed wasn't her. I told her and she believed me, but you know how it is when you didn't experience it yourself. She got quiet, shrugged a little, kind of like, "That's freaky, but what do we even do with that?" And honestly, time passed. Nothing else happened for a while. Long enough that it started to feel like a bizarre glitch in reality. Like maybe I'd imagined it. Like maybe I'd been half asleep. I almost forgot it. Almost. Then, months later, maybe close to a year after we'd moved in, we had the worst night of our lives. It was around 11:40 p.m. Lena and I had just gotten into bed. We'd barely been laying there 5 minutes when we suddenly heard one of the kids' indoor scooters blast across the hardwood downstairs in the dining area at the bottom of the stairs. And I don't mean a toy shifting or slowly rolling an inch because the floor is uneven. No, this sounded like a hard shove, like it got launched, wheels rattling fast, sliding, clattering. The kind of sound that makes your brain scream, "Someone is in the house." Lena sat straight up. I sat straight up. We looked at each other and there was no wait and see. No, listen for more. We moved. I grabbed my handgun and we did that awful thing you never want to do. Clearing your own house in the middle of the night with your heart trying to climb out of your throat. Our place isn't big, maybe 1,100 square feet. And it's kind of cramped, honestly. Not a ton of storage. Not many places for someone to hide. We checked everything. Closets, corners, behind doors, under beds. Every room. Nothing. No open windows. No forced door. No weird shadows. Just quiet. So we go back upstairs, both trying to pretend we're not shaking. I kept the gun within arm's reach. We're laying there again, and it's like our bodies haven't even had time to calm down. And then we hear it. Someone coming up the stairs. Clear as day. Heavy steps. Not careful. Not sneaking. Just walking up like they own the place. It takes maybe 8 seconds to climb our stairs, and whatever it wasn't slow. There was the sound of footsteps, but also this weird swish sound, like fabric brushing with every step, like a jacket or track pants. Lena sprang out of bed before I even fully moved, arms up like she was bracing to confront someone at the top. I grabbed the gun and rushed to the bedroom door, because our daughter's room is right next to ours, and all I could think was, I am not letting someone reach that door. I turned the corner, fully expecting to be face to face with an intruder, and there was no one. Nobody. Nothing. The hallway was empty. The landing was empty. The stairs were empty. And that moment messed me up, because my brain couldn't file it anywhere. There is no version of reality where something makes that kind of noise, coming all the way up the stairs, and then simply isn't there. Also, I know my house. Like, know it. I work from home. I'm here constantly. Every step has its own squeak. Every board talks. If someone had sprinted back down, I would have heard it. If they'd moved into another room, I would have heard the floor complain about it. But it was like the sound reached the top of the stairs, and then vanished. We cleared the house again, faster, more frantic, lights on everywhere. Still nothing. We even debated calling the police, but how do you explain it without sounding unhinged? Hi, yes, we heard someone run a scooter and then climb our stairs, but there's no one here. Like, come on. So I stayed downstairs on the couch with every light blazing, gun in hand, just sitting there in this tense, miserable silence. Probably 40 minutes, maybe longer. Eventually, exhaustion won. We went back up, but this time we closed the baby gate at the top of the stairs. Not because we thought a baby gate could stop a grown adult, but because if someone did come up again, they'd have to mess with it, and we'd have a second of warning. About half an hour later, I hear noise from the small office across the hall. At first it was like a hum, then a sharper mechanical sound, like something powering up. I got out of bed and walked toward the office door, and the sound got louder. Not subtle, not imaginary. I ran back, grabbed the gun again, and got Lena. We yanked the office door open, and my laser cutter exhaust system was on. Not only the internal fan, also the external exhaust fan, cranked up to full. And here's what matters. I hadn't touched that setup in months. And these aren't touchscreens or voice commands or something. They're physical switches. The external fan requires multiple button presses to ramp up speed. In the years I'd owned that equipment, it had never once turned on by itself. That was the moment Lena and I just stood there, staring, and I could feel my whole sense of safety collapse. Because now it wasn't just a sound. It wasn't just a weird moment in bed. It was something interacting with the house. 3 back-to-back incidents. Scooter, stairs, then that exhaust system, flipped a switch in me. It made me revisit every strange noise we'd brushed off. Every odd feeling. Every probably nothing. And then I did one last thing that messed me up even more. I went digging through my phone trying to figure out when that first bed incident had happened. I don't know why. Curiosity, I guess. Maybe I wanted to prove it to myself that it was real. And when I finally pinned it down, it landed on December 21st, exactly 1 year before the night of the scooter and the stairs. That timing hit me like a punch, like the house was keeping its own calendar. And the worst part is not knowing, not having a clean explanation. That uncertainty eats at you. We told our next-door neighbors, older couple, been there forever, like 5 decades. And they got strangely quiet and said something like, "Well, years back, a woman who lived in your house disappeared." They weren't sure on the exact year, maybe 2006, 2007, but they said it like it was old neighborhood lore, like everybody knew something happened, but nobody talked about it. I don't know if it's connected. I don't know if I even believe in that kind of connection, but it's the only thread I've got. And now, it's mid-December again, and I can feel myself getting tense, like my body remembers before my brain does. I put up 2 indoor cameras, one in the kitchen aimed down the hall toward the living and dining areas, so it can catch anything moving toward the stairs, and one at the top of the stairs. Part of me wants to prevent anything from happening, and part of me is terrified that if something happens again, the only way anyone will ever believe it is if I catch it on video. I've told people this story and joked that they're welcome to spend the night. Nobody ever takes me up on it. And honestly, I don't blame them. But if you've got any suggestions, any way to feel prepared without feeding the fear, please tell me. Because I can already feel the date creeping closer, and I hate that my own house has a countdown in my head. So this isn't really a scary story, at least not in the jump scare way, but it's one of the weirdest things that ever happened to me, and I still can't explain it. This was, I want to say about a decade ago, maybe a little more, like 11 years back. It was late, around 10 at night, and me and my brother Eli were doing this thing we used to do when we got bored inside. We'd just wander around outside our parents' place, talking about nothing and everything, just pacing the yard, tossing random thoughts back and forth. And at first, everything was normal. Then I noticed this tiny red dot, like a laser pointer, flicker onto my left shin. I stopped mid-step and looked down like, what was that? But the second I focus on it, it's gone. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe my eyes just caught a reflection off something. Whatever. I shrug it off and keep listening to Eli ramble, because he's the talker, and I'm mostly just nodding along. Maybe 2 minutes later, same thing. Red dot, same leg. This time I do a sharper double take. Now I'm scanning the yard like, alright, who's messing with me? Because it seriously looked like one of those laser pointers people use to mess with pets. But I don't see anyone. No neighbors out. No movement. Nothing. I brush it off again, but I'm definitely alert now. And then it happens again, only this time it flashes on my stomach. I look down and gone. That's when I finally interrupt Eli and go, "Dude, is someone out here aiming a laser at me or something? I keep seeing this red light." He stops talking and looks around, kind of squinting into the dark, and he's like, "No, I don't see anyone." But at this point, I'm not letting it go, because now it's happened too many times to be nothing. So I start slowly scanning the perimeter of the yard, like maybe someone's hiding behind a tree or a fence. And then I start noticing the red light on the ground. Except here's the part that messed with me. Every time I looked directly at it, it would vanish, like it didn't want to be seen head on. And it wasn't always just a dot anymore. Sometimes it looked like a little circle, maybe the size of a coin, and once it even had this faint halo around it, like a ring. So I'm crouching a little, searching the grass, and Eli's kind of behind me, confused, trying to figure out what I'm reacting to. And while I'm looking, I start seeing something else. something I can't even describe right without sounding crazy. It looked like a thin, glittery, metallic silver string on the ground, almost like those shiny curling party streamers people hang from ceilings at birthdays. You know, the ones that twist and shimmer when they move. That's the closest comparison I can make. Except this wasn't hanging from anything. It was just there, low to the ground, like a little shimmering strand. But the second I tried to focus on it clearly, gone again. Like it slipped out of view the moment my brain tried to lock onto it. Then the red light comes back, hard. Not just once. It's hitting different parts of me rapidly. Leg, forearm, stomach, chest, like someone was flicking it around on purpose. And I snap. I'm like, Eli, what the hell? It's on me. It's literally on me right now. What is going on? He can tell I'm actually panicking now, like my voice has that edge to it, and he's telling me to calm down, but he's also looking around more seriously now too. And then, this part gives me chills even thinking about it. We both turn at the same time, like perfectly in sync. No idea why. We just both shifted our bodies and looked toward the ground behind us. And there it was. An orb. It was hovering around knee height, maybe 2 feet in front of us. And the second we both actually registered it, like the moment our brains went, oh my God, we're both seeing this, it shot downward. Not straight down like it dropped. It moved in this smooth arc, like a little parabolic swoop, and then, zip. It went into the ground and vanished. Like it dove into the dirt. We just stared at each other. No words, just that look like, tell me you saw that. And the answer was obvious, because we both looked stunned. Now, me and Eli were raised pretty religious. Not like we were at church every week or anything, but faith was real to us. And in that moment, we didn't interpret it as cool mystery. We interpreted it as something bad, something with intent, something that wasn't supposed to be there. So we went straight inside, locked the door, and we prayed, right there in the house, asking for protection, for our home to be covered, for whatever that was to stay gone. We didn't yell about it or run around telling anyone. We actually got kind of quiet, because in our minds, speaking too much about it felt like inviting it back, like giving it attention. The rest of that night we stayed up trying to make sense of it, without fully saying it out loud over and over. And then the next morning, I wake up with my left eye sore, like I'd been lightly hit by something. Not bruised, no redness like an infection, no mark at all. Just that tender, something impacted me kind of soreness. And I remember just laying there thinking, no way. Like I couldn't prove it was connected, but it felt connected in my gut. And that's basically it. We never saw anything like that again. No red dot, no glittery silver string-looking thing, no brass orb, nothing. But I'll tell you, every time I think about that night, I can still see that little bright thing hovering there, like it was alive for a second, and then it just dove into the earth like it belonged to something underneath. Okay, so I need to give you a little context first, because otherwise this is going to sound completely unhinged. I've lived in this rental for about 5 years now, still here, and I swear, everything weird in my life started the moment we moved into this place. Not in my childhood home, not in any creaky old house stereotype, not even when we visited relatives in older buildings. Just here, only here. And the house has history, like the kind of history you can feel if you stand still long enough. It used to be trashed and occupied by squatters, and there was a police raid at one point. There's literally a repaired section of ceiling where they came down through it. It's patched up now, but you can still see it if you know where to look. It's like the house has a scar. Anyway, the first time I ever saw something, I was a kid. Little enough that I still played on the floor with plushies and didn't think twice about it. I remember sitting in my room, just messing around, when I heard footsteps. Not the soft kind. Heavy. Like boots. I looked into the hallway, expecting to see my dad or maybe my brother, but instead, there was this tall figure. I mean, tall. Like 6.5 feet at least. He was pitch black, like someone cut him out of the darkness. And he had this long coat, something like a trench coat, and a wide brim hat. I know how ridiculous that sounds, but that's what it looked like. He didn't rush me or do anything dramatic. He just stood there, like he was checking on me. Then he nodded, slow and deliberate, and he said something. I couldn't make out the words. It was like hearing someone talk through water. And here's the part that makes me feel stupid even telling you. I got up and followed him. Like a kid following an adult down a hallway because it feels normal in the moment. I stepped into the hall, and he was gone. No footsteps fading away, no door closing, nothing. Just empty hallway and that same weird stillness. After that, things were quieter for a while. Not normal exactly, but quieter. The bigger stuff didn't really ramp up until I hit high school. That's when it started feeling like the house was getting more comfortable being strange. Two things stand out the most. The first one happened around 4:45 in the morning. The whole house was dead asleep. No TV, no music, nothing. And then, crash. It came from the kitchen, loud enough that my stomach dropped like I missed a step on stairs. I ran out, fully expecting to see broken glass or someone breaking in. But what I found didn't make sense. The dish drying rack, like the whole rack, was by the front door. Not tipped over in the kitchen, not slid off the counter. By the front door. And in the living room, a heavy pan, one of those thick, weighty ones, was on the floor like it had been thrown. Both things were several feet from where they belonged. Like, not a cat knocked it down situation. The pan would have had to travel. I stood there, heart racing, trying to think of any explanation that didn't involve me losing my mind. Then I did the bravest thing a jumpy person can do. I retreated. I went back to bed. I pulled the blanket up like that could protect me from physics breaking, and I forced myself to sleep. The second big incident didn't even happen to me. It happened to my friend Mason. He was over one afternoon. I was in my room folding laundry, and he was in the kitchen, because for some reason he insists on refilling the ice trays when he visits, like he lives here or something. I heard a sharp clatter, then him swearing loud enough that it echoed. I asked him what happened, and he told me, dead serious, that the tray had been firmly in both his hands when it suddenly jerked upward and smacked him right in the face, like someone yanked it. And that fits the pattern. I'll get to that. Because after those, it wasn't always big dramatic stuff. Sometimes it was little things. Objects not where you left them. A shadow in the corner of your vision. A quick movement you can't quite track when you turn your head. But the most consistent thing, the thing that every single person who comes into this house says without me prompting them, is this. The air feels tense. Like you're being watched. Not, oh, this place is creepy, watched. More like observed. Like you're a guest, and the house doesn't quite trust you yet. And I used to be one of those people who rolled their eyes at paranormal stories. Like, no offense, but I was in the there's always an explanation camp. Except after enough unexplainable things happen, especially when other people experience them too, you start running out of explanations. What's weird is that while my friends are the ones who see and hear things more often, for me the biggest experiences are touch. I'll be doing something totally normal, homework, cleaning, just laying on my bed scrolling, when I suddenly feel this cold pressure, usually on my shoulders or along the side of my face. And it's not like a breeze. It feels specific, like hands. Here's the part that makes my skin prickle even as I say it. Most of the time, it isn't scary. It's almost, don't laugh, comforting. Like someone patting your shoulder or brushing your cheek in a familiar way. But sometimes it gets weird. Sometimes when I'm sitting or lying down, it feels like something presses into me, like a tight hug, except it can shift into something heavier, like being pinned, like something is laying on top of me. And before you say sleep paralysis, no, I've looked into that. When this happens, I'm awake. I can move. I can lift my arms and legs. I can turn my head. But when I try to sit up, it's like I'm pushing against weight that isn't there. I've actually forced myself upward before, like a few inches off the mattress, only to get shoved back down, like my body hits an invisible hand and bounces. It's infuriating more than anything. Like, excuse me, I'm trying to exist? And thankfully, so far, it hasn't gone past that. I really, really want it to stay that way. Because here's the pattern I was talking about. Whatever this is in my house, it treats me differently than it treats everyone else. With me, it's almost respectful. It barely messes with my stuff. If anything, it gets clingy. Like it wants attention, or it wants to remind me it's there. But with other people, it's like it's annoyed they're here, or protective, or territorial. I don't even know. It'll bang on my sister's door in the middle of the night and wake the whole house up. It'll move my dad's tools around when nobody's home, like taking things and putting them in different places just to prove it can. And then there's what happened to Mason with the ice tray, and other little accidents my friends have had here that never happen anywhere else. At this point, my whole friend group jokes about my haunted house, but it's that kind of joking where everyone laughs a little too fast, you know? Like we're trying to keep it light so we don't have to sit in how real it feels. And I don't know why it's chosen me as the favorite. That part honestly freaks me out more than the shadows or the moving objects. Because if something is capable of being aggressive to other people but gentle with me, that means it's making choices. The strangest part, this is all still happening. Like right now, while I'm telling you this, it's late, past 2 a.m, and I can feel that same cold pressure on my shoulders and along my cheek. Not painful, just there, like it's listening too. So, hey, let me just start by saying, I'm 17, and I live in Sweden in this old house that's been standing since the 1600s, like really old. The kind of place where the floors creak even when no one's walking, and the air always feels a little cooler in certain corners. My family says the house once belonged to someone well known around here, a privateer named Johann Blom. There's this weird pride people have about it, like it's historic, like it's charming. And yeah, it is beautiful in that antique way. But living in it is different. I've been here basically my whole life. And when I was about 7, things started happening that I didn't have words for. In my room back then, I had this tall bookshelf that I kept my comics and school stuff on. And I swear to you, books would end up on the floor like they'd been shoved out. Not like, oops, it slipped. Like something cleared them off. I'd come back from dinner and see 2 or 3 lying open on the rug, pages spread like they'd been thrown. I also had this old tiled stove in my room, one of those big ceramic ones, and at night, I'd hear this scraping sound from inside it. Not crackling, not settling. Scraping. Like something dragging fingernails against stone. Sometimes, when I was home alone, I'd hear movement in the hallway, soft steps, like someone barefoot, and faint voices like they were in another room talking low. I'd freeze and listen, hoping it was the TV or the pipes or anything normal. And it went on for years. Not every day, but often enough that you start adjusting your life around it without realizing. For a long time, it was mostly just me experiencing it. And then, it wasn't. My little brother and my mom started noticing things too, hearing things, seeing things. The moment that still makes my stomach tighten when I think about it happened when my grandma was visiting. Everything was totally normal. We were sitting around, laughing, talking, just a calm evening. Then my brother suddenly went quiet, like someone turned him off. He stared down at the table and said, very plainly, "Maya is gone." Maya was my grandma's best friend. Everyone instantly reacted like, "What is wrong with you?" My parents snapped at him for saying something like that. Grandma looked offended and confused and, honestly, kind of hurt. And then her phone rang. It was Maya's husband. He told her Maya had just died. And the thing is, this wasn't some "she's been sick for weeks, we were expecting it" situation. It was sudden. And my brother had no way of knowing. Like, physically, logically, no way. The room went quiet in this really heavy way, and I remember staring at my brother like I didn't recognize him. When I got older, around 14 or 15, I started trying really hard to be rational about everything. I wasn't hearing as much anymore, and I didn't want to be the kid who believes in ghosts just because the house is old. So I told myself it was imagination, or stress, or just the house settling. But still, sometimes I'd see the chandelier swing just a little, like someone brushed past it. Sometimes I'd hear footsteps on the stairs when no one was there, and I'd just force myself to shrug it off. Then I started dating my girlfriend. Well, now she's my ex, but at the time she was the first person outside my family who spent real time in the house with me. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the house noticed a new person and decided to react. It wasn't subtle. It affected almost everyone. Except my dad. My dad doesn't believe any of it. Even if something happened right in front of him, he'd find a way to make it our fault. Like we set something up. Like we were exaggerating. It was exhausting. The first time my girlfriend came into my room, she stopped near the doorway and said she felt weird, like suddenly dizzy and sick. She literally told me, "I felt fine until I walked in here." She said it felt like she wasn't supposed to be there, like she was being watched. Not in a normal, nervous meeting the parents way, but like there was someone else in the room with us. After a few minutes, she asked if we could go somewhere else. I didn't want to. I was stubborn and also kind of embarrassed, like I didn't want to admit something was wrong with my room. So we stayed. Not long after that, she suddenly ran to the window and threw up. Like, violently. It wasn't, "Oops, I feel nauseous." It was full on. At first we tried to explain it. Maybe she was anxious. Maybe she hadn't eaten. Maybe it was something random. But it kept happening. Every time she was in that room, she got sick. Every single time. And the weird part was she was totally fine in the rest of the house. We could hang out in the kitchen, the living room, even the hallway outside my room. Nothing. But the moment she stayed in my room too long, she'd get pale and shaky, and then, yeah. So eventually I talked to my brother and asked if we could switch rooms. He agreed, surprisingly easily. Like maybe he didn't want to be near that room either. When my mom asked why I wanted to swap, I told her what my girlfriend had experienced. And I asked her, kind of carefully, if there was anything else about the house or that room that I didn't know. And she got this look, like she'd been waiting years for someone to ask. She told me that when she first moved in with my dad, she felt the house had this strange heaviness. And one time in the bathroom, She saw towels, not falling, not hanging wrong, sticking out into the air, like something invisible was pinching them in the corner and pulling them outward, like a hand stretching fabric. She asked my dad if anything like that had happened to him. He basically laughed it off. Then she told me something that I had no memory of. She said when I was about 4 or 5, I woke up crying and told her I'd had a nightmare about a headless man with an axe in the bathroom. Like I described it in detail, him coming toward me, killing me. She said it freaked her out because I was so little, and I talked about it like it was real. I didn't remember any of it. But after she told me, the dreams came back. For weeks, I kept dreaming about that bathroom, that same feeling, that same shape, like my brain had been reminded of something it wanted to forget. After we switched rooms, my girlfriend stopped getting sick, completely. And the old room got quieter too. Not totally dead, but calmer. Back when it was my brother's room, there was only one thing I clearly remember happening in there. Me and my mom were sitting and doing something simple, coloring or drawing, when a lid from a mug launched off a shelf and hit the floor right between us. Now I've been in my new room for about 2 years. And most of the time it's fine. Mostly. But I still get that feeling sometimes that I'm being watched. Like there's a presence just outside the edge of your vision. And the most recent thing? I still don't have an explanation for it. One morning, I noticed the word "hello" written on the outside of my window. Outside. And the creepy part is, you can't just walk up and do it. The bushes are high and thick right under the window, and the window itself is up enough that you'd have to be standing in a really awkward place to reach it. Like you'd need a ladder, or you'd need to be inside the bushes. There was no ladder, no footprints, nothing obvious. Just that word. Like someone wanted me to know they'd been there. And honestly, that's what gets me the most. Not the noises or the books or even the dreams. It's the feeling that whatever it is, if it is something, doesn't just happen randomly. It notices. And sometimes it answers back. So, today I want to tell you about my aunt. Let's call her Aunt Marisol, and this house she lived in for years out in Colorado before she eventually moved down to Texas with her husband. Marisol bought that place back when she was with her partner at the time, a guy named Graham. It was actually a really nice house, the kind that should feel cozy and normal. And the basement? It wasn't even one of those creepy, unfinished basements you see in movies. It was finished. Soft carpet, clean white walls, bright lighting. Marisol used it as this combo home gym and office, and she'd worked down there as an attorney, the kind who spent her days fighting for people who needed someone in their corner. Off to the side of the basement was the laundry area, small, plain, and practical. Cement floor, washer and dryer tucked under a shelf with detergent and dryer sheets, its own overhead light. Just normal. Completely normal. And yet, every once in a while, being down there would hit me with this sudden, awful feeling, like someone had just turned their attention toward me. You know that sharp sensation where the hairs on your arms lift and your whole body prickles with goosebumps? Like your instincts are yelling, "Hey, something's right behind you." It was easy to talk myself out of it though, because everything looked so boring and everyday. I used to house sit for Marisol when she traveled, sometimes just a couple days, sometimes a whole week, because she had chickens and they needed care no matter what. During one of those stays, I carried a basket of clothes down to do laundry. And the moment I stepped into that laundry area, my body just reacted. My scalp went tight, My back tingled, and it felt like someone was creeping up behind me, close enough that if I turned too fast, I'd bump into them. I kept loading the washer, trying to act casual, but I kept glancing over my shoulder. Once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. No footsteps. No shadow. Nothing visible at all. So I did that thing we all do. I rushed through it, laughed quietly at myself, and practically sprinted back up the stairs like I was late for an appointment with safety. But then the wash cycle finished, and I had to go back down. I remember being so determined to look unbothered, like, nope, not scared, totally fine, I belong here. Like confidence could somehow keep the air from turning heavy. It was worse the second time. The washer was a top loader, and I'm short, barely 5 feet. So pulling clothes out means I have to lean way over the rim, reaching down until my feet almost lift off the ground. I was basically folded in half, vulnerable, stuck in that position. And that's when the feeling got intense, like dread crawling up from my stomach and settling in my throat. The sensation at my back was so strong, it was almost physical, like someone hovering inches away, watching, waiting. I kept telling myself it was just nerves, that I felt exposed because of how I was bent over, that my imagination was grabbing the wheel. But the longer I stayed down there, the more it felt like the room didn't want me there. I yanked the last piece of clothing out, shoved everything into the dryer, and got up the stairs so fast I'm surprised I didn't trip. When I reached the top, I shut that basement door like it could seal the feeling away. Later, grabbing the clean clothes wasn't nearly as bad. Still weird, but not like that. When Marisol got home a day or two later, I finally mentioned it, half laughing, like I was embarrassed to even say it out loud. And she didn't even blink. She just goes, "Oh, yeah, that's Eddie." I swear I thought she was joking. Then she said something that made my stomach dip. She told me Graham used to say, kind of darkly, that if he ever died before she did, he'd handle Eddie, so she'd never have to live in that house alone, with whatever that was. Graham was quite a bit older than her, so the way they talked about mortality sometimes wasn't totally out of left field. But still, hearing that, after what I'd felt, it landed differently. And then, a few years later, Graham actually did pass away. They'd been riding his motorcycle together, and an accident happened. One wrong slip on loose sand or gravel, and that was it. Marisol wasn't badly hurt, just bruises and a twisted ankle, but Graham was taken to the hospital and didn't make it. He held on for days, but eventually, he was gone. A little while after she came home, Marisol told me something I still get chills thinking about. She said she was in the living room when she heard these heavy noises upstairs, in her bedroom directly above her. Not just a creak or a bump. It sounded like a full-on fight. Loud thuds, rattling, the kind of chaos that makes you picture furniture shifting and bodies slamming into things. And here's the part that made it eerie. Graham had trained in martial arts for years. He moved with that grounded, powerful kind of energy, even when he was just walking through a room. Marisol waited until the noises stopped, then went upstairs. Her bedroom looked like something had happened. A couple framed photos and papers that had been neatly stacked were on the floor. The bed, made earlier that day, was rumpled like someone had thrown their weight across it. And after that ugly, watching feeling in the basement was just gone. No more Eddie, no more dread, no more sense of something wanting to feed off fear. Like someone had walked into that house after death and finished some unfinished business. But that isn't even the last strange thing, because about a year later, I saw Graham. By then, Marisol had started dating someone new, Devin, and he'd moved in with his 2 little boys. I used to babysit them a lot while Metasol worked downstairs, and sometimes I'd be the only adult in the house while she was off in court. One afternoon, the boys were upstairs napping, and I was on the couch reading. The front door was in my line of sight. Hanging on a hook near the door was one of Graham's old flannels, one he'd loved and worn constantly. Metasol kept it there, and sometimes she'd wear it herself, like a small comfort she didn't have to explain. I glanced up from my book, and there he was. Graham, full color, solid, completely real-looking, standing by the door. He was wearing the flannel that had been hanging there, and he was leaning forward, pulling on a shoe like he was getting ready to head out. I blinked hard, because I expected him to disappear the second my eyes reset. But he didn't. He stayed. For a moment, we just looked at each other. And it wasn't scary. It wasn't threatening. It was quiet. Familiar. Like he was checking the place, checking her. We gave each other the smallest nod, like, yeah, I see you. You see me. And then he was gone. Not fading, not turning away, just there 1 second and not there the next. That night, I told Metasol over dinner, and her eyes did that thing where sadness and love mixed together. She said she'd never seen him that clearly, but she'd felt him sometimes, like the bed dipping, warmth against her back, like someone lying down behind her the way he used to. She said she felt him less now that Devin and the boys were part of the home, but not in a bad way. More like he was relieved. Like he'd wanted her to keep living, keep loving, keep building something after him. Not like a haunting. More like a hand on your shoulder. A gentle reminder that love doesn't always leave just because someone does. So, I can't tell you my exact age, but I was somewhere around 15, maybe 16. Back then, I was living just outside Boulder, in a small Colorado town where the air always felt a little too crisp at night. I spent a ton of time at my best friend Jules's place. She lived with her mom, Dana, in this long, older mobile home that always smelled faintly like laundry detergent and craft glue. When I first started coming over, they had someone renting their extra room. But once he moved out, that room turned into this chaotic craft storage universe. I'm talking towers of fabric, yarn that had escaped its skeins like it was making a break for freedom, loose buttons everywhere, like the room itself was mid-explosion. Then one weekend, Dana decided she'd had enough. A few days later, she proudly showed me what she'd done. And honestly, it was impressive. The room looked completely different, like magazine different. She'd put in a twin bed with a squeaky metal frame, set up this old chunky TV that looked like it belonged in the 80s, and even organized all her supplies into neatly labeled bins and drawers. It had its own little bathroom too, which felt wildly luxurious compared to the couch or the floor of Jules's bedroom. Dana was practically glowing, because she knew, without even saying it, that I'd be the one sleeping in there most often. Now, Jules and I had this tradition during sleepovers. We'd stay up late and scare ourselves on purpose. That was our favorite thing. This was back when creepy internet stuff felt oddly believable. We'd watch spooky videos, read stories, and dare each other to keep going even when we were both clearly freaked out. That night, we'd even played one of those early horror games on her laptop until we were jumpy and laugh-screaming at everything. Eventually, though, we ran out of material, and the tired kind of dread set in. The kind where your brain starts inventing extra fear just to stay entertained. I didn't want to, but I finally said goodnight and went across the hall to the new guest room. I climbed into bed, the frame giving that little metallic squeal, and I just laid there trying to calm myself down. I did that thing where you take a slow breath and tell yourself, you're fine. It's just a room. You're being dramatic." My eyes were closed. My body started to soften. And then I heard it. Footsteps. Not outside, not in the hallway, inside my room. You know that instant full-body alertness? Like someone poured cold water into your bloodstream? That happened. My arms prickled. The back of my neck lit up with adrenaline. I yanked my eyes open and immediately grabbed my glasses because I suddenly felt way too exposed being half blind. I stared into the dim room. There was a streetlight outside, and it threw a pale rectangle of light across part of the floor. And I saw nothing. But the footsteps kept going. Slow, steady creaks in the floor like someone was actually walking around. They started near the door, then crossed diagonally toward the little TV stand, then moved toward the open closet. Then, oh my God, then they came toward the bed. I could track them perfectly. 3 or 4 small steps at a time, like whoever it was had short legs. And when they got close enough, it felt like someone was standing right beside me, just looking at me. Not menacing, not angry, curious. Then the steps moved away again, toward this oversized teddy bear Dana had propped in the corner on a chair like it was a person. Then back to the TV. And then the whole route repeated, over and over, like a little loop. I tried to ignore it. I even took my glasses off again and lay back thinking, if I pretend I'm asleep, maybe it'll get bored and go away. Nope. It kept going with the relentless energy only a kid could have. The same path, the same pauses, and I got to the point where I could predict it like a rhythm. Steps. 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 I wasn't scared anymore, but I also couldn't relax, and I felt ridiculous, truly. But finally, I just spoke out loud. I said something like, I know this room is different now, and you're probably just looking around, but it's really late, and I can't sleep with the walking. Could you please stop for tonight so I can rest? And I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, the room changed instantly. It was like the air untensed. The prickly feeling on my skin vanished. The footsteps stopped mid-world. Silence dropped in so clean it almost felt heavy, and I could finally breathe normally again. I fell asleep. The next morning, I was in the living room, eating breakfast with Jules and Dana, telling them everything. I was trying to make it sound casual, like it was no big deal, even though my eyes were probably huge the whole time. And while I was finishing the story, I stood up to go grab my overnight bag, because my mom was going to pick me up soon. I turned toward the hallway, and I froze, like my body simply refused to move, because standing right in front of me was a little girl. Solid, real, not transparent, not misty, but completely in grayscale. She looked about 6 or 7. She was wearing this old-fashioned dress with a little square apron, something you'd see in an antique photo. Her hair was straight and cut to her jaw, and even though she had no actual color, my brain insisted I knew what her colors were supposed to be. Like her ribbon bow should have been light blue, like her hair should have been dark blonde. She looked up at me and smiled, sweet and knowing, like, "Oh, so you were talking about me." And then, without any rush, she turned slightly and leaned forward like she was trying to scoop up a cat that I couldn't see. She took a couple small steps, reaching down, and followed that invisible cat directly through the wall. Just gone. I turned back to Jules and Dana so slowly, I swear I felt my joints creak. Dana's eyes were bright, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. "What just happened?" she demanded, practically vibrating. I could barely get air out. "You won't believe me if I tell you." "Yes, we will," Jules said immediately, like she was already bracing herself. "We know this place is weird. What was it?" So I described her, the little girl. The grayscale, the apron, the ribbon. Dana erupted. "I knew it!" she yelled, pointing like she'd just won something. "Jules, didn't I say for years it felt like there was a little girl here?" Jules just laughed and nodded like, "Fine, you've been saying it forever." A minute later, my mom pulled up, and I went back to the guest room to grab my stuff. While I was stuffing my toothbrush into my bag, I paused and looked around the room. At the neatly folded things, the labeled bins, the squeaky bed. And I said, quietly, to the empty air, "You can come visit again if you want, just not in the middle of the night next time." And that's the strange part. I stayed over there plenty of times after that, but I never heard the footsteps again, and I never saw that little girl again either. So, this happened when I was about 26, and I was crashing for a long weekend at my best friend Maya's place. She was renting this older little house with her boyfriend, Evan, the kind of house with slightly creaky floors and that faint, always there smell of wood and dust. Here's the setup. Evan's aunt and uncle technically owned the place, so the rent was cheap, but in exchange, Maya and Evan were basically the unofficial maintenance crew. At the time, they were in the middle of some renovation thing, running new wiring for recessed lights, replacing a junction box, something along those lines. And because they were going up into the attic constantly, they'd moved the attic access panel and just left it open for the week or two the project would take. And of course, the attic opening was in the ceiling of the guest room, which was where I was sleeping. So every time I'd lie down, I'd be staring at this dark rectangle above me like, great, love this, wonderful choice. And I'm not even saying I'm a super paranoid person, but sleeping under an open attic feels like the universe is daring you to imagine something up there. The first night, I literally slept facing away from it with the blanket pulled up like a child. Very cool, very brave. But the weird part didn't happen at night. It happened the next day, in broad daylight. Maya and I were in the guest room while Evan was explaining what he was doing up there, pointing at the ceiling, talking about wires and insulation, and, yeah, we're just waiting on the new fixture. I remember being half listening, kind of looking around, when I got this sudden, almost magnetic urge to look up into the opening. And when I did, it looked normal. Sunlight was coming in from the window, and I could see the beams, some rolled insulation, maybe a toolbox or a stack of drywall off to one side. Just a regular attic. Except, at the same time, there was something else. This is the part that's hard to explain without sounding completely unhinged, but it felt like I was seeing two layers at once. Like my actual eyes were seeing wood and dust, but my brain was picking up a second image in the exact same space. In that second layer, there was this black shape. Not a spider, not a shadow from a beam, not anything that made sense. It was like an inky blob, sort of fluid and thick, sitting right at the edge of the opening. And I felt it watching us. Not like, ooh, spooky attic vibes. Like the sensation you get when someone is staring at the back of your head and you turn around because you just know. Except there wasn't a someone. It didn't even feel human. It just felt aware. I stood there staring, trying to force my brain to categorize it. Dust? A trick of light? A weird angle? But the longer I stared, the more solid the other image became. And then it moved. It sort of flowed, like it poured itself from the right side of the opening to the left, hugging the edge in a slow, deliberate way. And then it changed shape. This is the part that made my skin go cold. It formed into something like a head and shoulders leaning over the opening, peering down. There were no features, no eyes, no mouth, nothing. Just matte blackness. But but I could tell where its face was, and I could tell it was looking down at us. And then, this is the detail I hate the most. I had this immediate sense that it noticed me noticing it. Like there was a moment of mutual recognition. Like it turned its attention in my direction and went, "Oh, you can see this." I nodded along to whatever he was saying, pretending I was fine, while my brain was screaming, "Do not look up again. Do not look up again." And I told myself all the usual things. It's an attic. People tell scary attic stories. I'm tired. My imagination is running wild. I'm a guest in someone's home. I'm not about to start acting like I just saw a ceiling demon at lunchtime. So I shoved it down, hard. Until the next day. The next day, Maya and I were in her car, just us, and she got quiet in this really specific way, like she was choosing her words carefully. She kept her eyes on the road and said, "Okay, I've been wanting to ask you something, but I didn't want to say it in the house." My stomach immediately did this slow roll. She said, "How are you feeling about the attic being open in the guest room?" And I tried to play it off. I was like, "It's kind of creepy. I don't love sleeping under it, but it's fine." There was this pause, and then she said, very softly, "Yesterday, I saw you looking up there for a while. Did you see anything? Or feel anything?" And my whole body went hot and cold at the same time, because, listen, I hadn't told her. I hadn't told Evan. I hadn't even told myself I fully believed it. But she was asking so directly that I couldn't really dodge it. So I said, "This is going to sound weird." And then I told her. I told her about the double-layer vision, about the black fluid shape, about it forming into something like a person leaning over the edge. And as I'm saying it, I'm watching her face. All the color drained out of her, like drained. Her mouth went slightly open, and she just stared straight ahead at the windshield. When I finished, she whispered, "No, no, no, no." And I was like, "What?" And she said, "I saw the same thing." My heart started pounding. She said, "The exact same thing. Black, kind of moving like it was liquid, like an amoeba, and it leaned out and looked down at me." Then she glanced at me and added, "And I saw it the same way you just described, like it wasn't normal sight, like it was in my mind's eye." I just sat there, completely nauseous, because at that point, imagination stopped being a comforting explanation. If two people describe the same impossible thing in the same impossible way, what are you supposed to do with that? I tried anyway. I said, "Maybe we both freaked ourselves out. It's an attic. We've watched too many scary movies. Our brains filled in the blanks." And she nodded, but it was the kind of nod you do when you want that to be true and it's not landing. Then she got really firm and said, "Okay, we're not talking about this in the house, not even joking, not even hinting. I don't want to acknowledge it in there. I don't want to feed it, or whatever." And she kind of shivered like she regretted saying even that much out loud. So we dropped it. But that night, when I went back to that guest room, I didn't have the luxury of telling myself it was nothing anymore. Because now it wasn't just my brain being dramatic. Now it was a thing we both saw. And I'll tell you, I don't think I slept more than 20 minutes at a time. I kept my back to that opening. I kept the blanket over my head like it could somehow protect me from an unseen watcher in the ceiling. And the worst part wasn't even fear, exactly. It was the certainty, the sick, quiet certainty, that if I looked up at the wrong moment, something might already be leaning over the edge, waiting for me to notice it again. Okay, I'm still kind of sitting with this because I don't fully know what to do with it yet. A few nights ago, well, technically early morning, I woke up starving. Like, wide awake, stomach growling starving. I checked the clock and it was somewhere around 2:40 a.m., give or take. So I shuffled downstairs, poured myself a bowl of cereal, and parked it in the recliner in the living room with the TV on low. For a little context, my partner, Evan, and I live with my mom. She's got pretty severe short-term memory issues. Day to day, she can function okay, but she can't live alone because she can't keep up with bills and appointments and all that stuff that piles up quietly. We moved in years ago when my stepdad was still alive. He was dealing with Lewy body dementia, and after he passed in 2021, we stayed because by then, my mom needed us even more. The house is 2 stories, and the layout matters here. When you're sitting in the living room facing toward the kitchen, like the furniture is set up, the stairs are off to the right. There's a landing upstairs that you can't see unless you're standing closer to the staircase. So there I am, half asleep, eating cereal, minding my business. When I hear my mom's voice, clear as anything, call my name. Not muffled, not distant, not like from behind a closed door. It sounded like she was standing right at that upstairs landing, just out of sight, and she called, "Marissa." I froze with the spoon halfway to my mouth. My first reaction wasn't even fear, it was just, oh, she's up. Because honestly, it wouldn't be totally weird. Evan got her this little puppy a couple years ago, and the dog is basically her shadow. Sleeps with her, follows her everywhere, and she'll sometimes get up in the middle of the night to take him outside. Her sleep schedule is flexible. So I just called back, kind of loud because her hearing isn't great. "Yeah?" No answer. So I called again, louder. "Mom?" Still nothing. At that point, I'm thinking she just didn't hear me, so I get up and walk over to the foot of the stairs, still not really alarmed, just mildly annoyed and confused. And there's no one there. I look up. Nothing. Quiet. And here's the thing that immediately felt off. Her bedroom door was shut. She almost never shuts it all the way. We've got cats, 3 of them, and 2 like to sleep in her room, so she usually leaves the door cracked so they can come and go to the litter box. But this time it's closed like she's tucked in for the night. Now I'm starting to get that little prickly feeling in my chest, but I go up anyway. I open her door, and her room is pitch black. She's in bed. I whisper her name, and she stirs, sits up part way, and it's obvious I woke her out of a deep sleep. Her words were thick and slurred in that groggy way, and she looked genuinely confused, like her brain was still trying to figure out what planet she was on. I asked her, "What did you need?" And she just blinked at me like, "What are you talking about?" She hadn't been up, not even close. And the biggest giveaway? The puppy. Because every single time she gets up, every time, he gets up too. He's obsessed with her. If she had been out on that landing, even for a minute, that dog would have been right there with her like a tiny security guard. But he was passed out cold on her bed, not even lifting his head. So now I'm standing in her dark room with my stomach dropping, realizing she did not call me. It wasn't Evan either. His voice is deeper, and there's no way on earth I'd confuse him for my mom. But I'm telling you, it was her voice. Not kind of like, not maybe. It said my name, clearly, at a normal volume from upstairs. I went back downstairs feeling shaken, like the air had shifted. Animals don't do that for no reason. So I'm sitting there trying to act normal, like I can just unfeel what I'm feeling. I turn the TV up a little, trying to distract myself, and then I start hearing something faint. It sounded like music, or maybe a TV playing in another room. Not loud, just this thin, faraway sound, like it was coming from upstairs somewhere. but my mom's TV was off, and the TV in our room wasn't on either. The house was supposed to be asleep. Even the cats seemed tense, like they were listening too. Ears twitching, bodies still, that alert quiet they get when something's not right. And I don't even know how to explain this part except I've always been sensitive. Not in a dramatic way, just in that I notice moods in a room kind of way. I pick up on energy. If something feels heavy or angry or wrong, I usually sense it. But this house? I grew up here. I've lived here forever. And I've never really had things happen here. Most of my weird experiences have been elsewhere. This place has always felt neutral, safe. The only history that makes me pause is what happened when my stepdad was still alive. When his dementia got more advanced, he used to talk about seeing people in the house. Not scary people, just people. And one in particular he called Captain Rook. He described him as this massive man, like 10 feet tall, wearing a tall hat, like something old-fashioned. And he never seemed terrified, more like matter-of-fact about it. We always chalked it up to hallucinations, because Lewy body dementia is notorious for that. But then, years ago, Evan once said he saw a shadow of a very tall figure. Just a shape, but unmistakably tall. I didn't believe him at first. I figured he was half asleep, or his eyes were playing tricks on him. Until one night, also around 3 a.m., I saw it too. Not a full figure in the room, more like a shadow cast against the wall. Tall, still, and the outline of a hat. It lasted only a moment, like a blink, and then it was gone. I remember shaking Evan awake, whispering, "I just saw something." And he barely opened his eyes and mumbled, like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Oh, that's just Captain Rook. He doesn't bother anyone. Go back to sleep." Which is not what you want to hear at 3 a.m., by the way. And that's basically it. That and one time my stepdad's old adding machine started going off even though it was unplugged, which is a whole separate little mystery. But nothing like this. Nothing like hearing my mom's voice call my name from upstairs when she was dead asleep in a dark room with the dog sprawled across her legs. So yeah, I don't know what it was. I don't know what to call it. I just know it happened, and it felt real. And the worst part is that it sounded so normal. Like it was supposed to be normal. Like someone wanted me to come look. And that thought has been sticking with me ever since.